Hello, you are listening to Trump Republic Radio. It is April 23rd, 2017. As always, I am your host, Enzo Quesada, and I'm joined by my co-host, Bobby Hester.
Good afternoon, everyone.
This week, we have for the first time two guests on the show. We've had them both before. The first one that we have on is a gay Filipino immigrant veteran Trump supporter who's the former chairman of the Hays County Libertarian Party, as seen on World's Dumbest, Ridiculousness, and the Huffington Post in order of trustworthiness to fake news. Say hello to Kris Celera.
Здравствуйте, товарищи.
That was actually Russian. I don't think that's Filipino, whatever y'all talk.
Magandang umaga.
He's fluent in multiple languages.
Also on the show, we have local heterosexual, musician, and activist involved in a local mayoral campaign, getting fluoride out of the water in San Marcos, going to both end the Fed protests and Occupy Wall Street protests. Now a Trump supporter that enjoys writing political songs and creator of our intro song, Sam Montoya.
What's up, everybody?
So, we got a lot of news to get into. Today is also the French election, which we're going to be giving live updates during the show on the results. At the moment, we do know that Le Pen and Macron should be advancing, but we're going to see where the results fall in that.
Yeah, as of right now, the website that I'm following, 36 of the 107 departments around the country have their results counted. And as of right now, Macron is in first with 23.9% of the vote, and Le Pen is in second with 20.9% of the vote. So as things update, we will keep you updated.
And of course, we all support Marine Le Pen. That goes without saying.
Vive la République, vive la France.
By the time this episode actually goes up, you will know the results of the election, but you'll be able to see how we react to it as results come in.
Yeah. So before we get into the news, as always, I just want to ask y'all, how has your week been? Has anything big happened? How about Sam? What have you been up to this week?
Well, working on that song was probably the biggest thing for me. Doing that editing on a new song I got that we might show later in the show.
Yeah, we got it planned to play for our break after the national news before we get into international news.
Cool. Yeah, but everything's been pretty good, man. I mean, just watching Trump nail it is all I care about, so it's good.
Sounds good. Kris, what have you been up to this week?
The usual recited poetry, helped out at my old workplace, and did a bit of impromptu stand-up. I was actually planning to do stand-up this week, but I walked in the bar, stand-up was going on, and the dude who was the host of the show, he said, "Hey, this guy looks funny. Don't we think he should do stand-up?"
He looks funny?
He looks like he can be funny. But no, got up there, absolutely killed it. And, I also got the date for my improv troupe next month.
Oh, yeah, your performance?
Yes.
For graduation?
Yes, for level 1 improv showcase.
Yeah, keep me up on the date for that. I'd definitely like to come out, see you perform with Nathan.
Yeah, for sure.
Bobby, what have you been up to this week?
Honestly, this was a pretty boring week for me. All I did was I went to school and I went to go see that new Fast and Furious movie.
Didn't that, break records?
It did. It broke the record, I think, for opening weekend with, $550 million.
I've never seen a single Fast and Furious movie. I don't know why
trust
people
me, you're
wanna
not
see
missing
it.
much.
Is it worth the money that it's made?
Not really, no.
Why do people go see these movies?
It's just, dumb action movie with a lot of, sports cars, and it's, it's a cliche thing. Really.
I guess that's fun to go see with someone, and if you acknowledge for what it is.
Yeah, I mean, no one's expecting it to be Oscar-worthy.
No.
They're going into there just to have a good couple hours and watch cars crash and explosions.
But it does have The Rock, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And Jason Statham.
Oh, yeah.
And Vin Diesel.
That's pretty good, then.
And they just stand there with their muscles and beat each other up. So if you're into that sort of stuff.
I still think the Rock's best role was the Tooth Fairy.
The Tooth Fairy. No, the Pharaoh.
They make it... No, do you remember when he played in that Hercules movie?
Yeah.
They made a joke about that in this movie.
Really?
Jason Statham's like, "Hey, Hercules, why don't you shut up?"
No, the best movie with The Rock was Gridiron Gang, where he's teaching, the prisoners to play football.
Oh, yeah.
Then one, gets shot on the field. Just to talk about my week for a little bit, my birthday was Tuesday. Kris and Bobby were at Chili's when we were celebrating it. Yesterday, actually, at work, like, I had a coworker ask me, like, what did you do this last week? And I said, oh, my birthday. And she's like, and I said, like, I went to Chili's with some of my friends because we did the exact same thing as my other friend. And she's like, oh, Chili's sucks. I was just like, oh, I like Chili's. I wanted to go to Chili's. But, yeah, it was just my birthday. I went to the high school only 2 days this week, so it kind of sucks. But,
Happy birthday, man.
oh, yeah, I'm 22 now. 22!
22!
It's a lame inside joke, but yeah, I'm 22. But other than that, nothing else. Let's get into the national news now, though. We got our first story about the Cleveland Facebook live stream killer. Bobby, do you want to tell us something about that?
This story was absolutely disgusting from start to finish. It was originally happening last Sunday when we were recording our last episode. I was seeing some of the news reports about that. And just to summarize what happened, so this guy in Cleveland, he went on Facebook Live, and he claimed that he killed like 13 people. But what he did was he actually killed a man live on Facebook Live. He was talking in the car about some problems. He saw a guy walking down the street. He got up out of his car, walked over to him. And keep in mind, like I said, this is all being live streamed to Facebook. And he says something along the lines of, hey, can you say my ex-girlfriend's name? The guy's like, why? And he says, oh, because I want you to say her name because she's the reason why this is about to happen to you. And then they kind of talk for a second. And all you see is the guy who he's talking to is this old guy. And I think, he was elderly, and I believe they said he fought in Vietnam. And all you see is he lifts up a couple of like shopping bags like he was walking home from the store. And you barely see a glimpse of the gun. And you see a bang, and the guy falls down on the ground dead. And then the guy just casually walks away from it, like nothing happened. And I've watched the video, and has anyone else in this group actually watched the video?
Oh yeah, I've seen it.
Chris, you saw it?
I haven't.
You haven't seen it. Sam, did you see it? It's absolutely disgusting when you watch it. And what ended up happening after that was, there's pretty much a statewide, there's like 5 or 6 states had a giant manhunt for the guy. And eventually they caught him in Pennsylvania. And from what I've heard, now a lot of people have been making jokes about this, so I'm not sure how much of this is completely accurate. But he was in like the drive-thru of a McDonald's trying to order nuggets because, guy's got his nugs. And I guess they either didn't have it or something caused him to get caught, or they recognized him, I believe. So he drove off, and a bunch of people started chasing him, including cops, and eventually he killed himself in his car. So I'm glad that the fact that there's one less murderer on the streets, not living in this world, but I feel really sorry for the guy's family because that became one of the most watched videos of the week was your grandfather being shot dead on the street. How does that make you feel if that's your family? And so I have a lot of sympathy for them, and I'm glad the whole ordeal is done. I wish it obviously wouldn't have happened, but it's just really sad.
He was out on the run for like a day or two, wasn't it?
It happened on Sunday, and I believe he killed himself on Wednesday or Thursday or maybe Tuesday.
Oh,
so it was
really?
at least 3 or 4 days.
But he was out more than a day.
Correct.
Chris, what are your thoughts on this a bit, just because you've seen the video? What were your reactions to the video?
I mean, the video itself, I'm pretty desensitized when it comes to seeing depictions of violence. It's not because of the Marine thing, it's because I've grown up watching shock videos because I live on the deep web.
Yeah, I was going to say, I have to agree with Chris there. I mean, I've seen a lot of snuff films and ISIS beheading videos, and even this one was really kind of hard to watch for me. Just
Really?
in comparison, just knowing, the story behind it, too.
Was there a lot of blood everywhere?
You could see a lot of blood on
Yeah,
the
you can see the
sidewalk.
blood.
Where did he get shot? Like the head, or
The head. It was a headshot.
Jesus Christ?
I mean, the guy literally, just think about this. You go to the store, you're walking home, and a guy walks up to you, and all of a sudden, 10 seconds later, you're lying on the sidewalk dead.
Something else. So, are they just chalking this up to like mental illness or something, or do
They're
they
trying to
have
chalk it
any
up to-
motive?
Oh, sorry. They're trying to chalk it up to mental illness, but it's the same. We have the same scenario repeat itself after every mass shooting event in the United States, or this in case controversial shooting. We don't know about the other bodies that he's claimed so far, but the left and the right, they like to say, oh, it's just some crazy, but this guy actually doesn't have a history of mental illness. So that argument is blown out of the window.
And also, I don't think they've actually found any evidence to support his claim that he's killed multiple extra people. Have you all seen anything about
No,
that?
haven't.
No? So, at this point, it's just speculation.
Yeah. Really crazy story to, lead out our week. Happened Sunday while we're recording this, but...
And one more thing, a lot of people were talking about this after it happened. I think it brings up a good point. This would not have happened, or it wouldn't have gotten the notoriety that it did, had social media not been the way it is today. I mean, anyone can just go live at any point now and broadcast what they're doing. You're going to start seeing more stuff like this as it continues, especially now that it's actually happened. And I just think with, social media is so great, but it has its downfalls, and this is one of them.
We've been seeing crimes being committed on Facebook Live so many times now.
Yeah.
Rapes even, yeah.
Rapes, that kidnapping of that mentally handicapped kid in Chicago.
Yeah. I was watching that yesterday just to kind of refresh, and it's still messed up, man.
Yeah, in that situation, they made him drink from the toilet. They burned him with ashes. They beat him, cut him, scalped him. And just people watch, and when that happened, a lot of people were, I was trying to report them to the police. The same thing with this Facebook Live killer, but sometimes people encourage them to, do these crimes further.
It's the train wreck effect. People want to see bad things happen.
Yeah. It's something else. I don't know. Do y'all have any other thoughts on this, or can we move on?
I mean, I guess one tidbit is the media reaction. Seeing I believe it was CNN that described him as a dark white male.
That was actually photoshopped.
That was photoshopped?
Yeah.
All right.
So fake news dispelled there.
But, if you think about it,
interesting.
they say things about, all satire has a ground point in reality. Yeah. The fact that was photoshopped and so many people thought that could have been something that the media actually wrote, that says something about the media today, too.
It does. And, AP actually had to do a correction on their Twitter because they tweeted out that, and this is something different, but speaking of media, they tweeted out that the killer, it was a black male who yelled Allahu Akbar. And he said God is great.
Yes.
That's for the next story.
Yeah, that's a different story.
Yeah, I'm just saying, the media is definitely, being called out due to Twitter and social media, and like you said, able to find things that are photoshopped here or there, because it's so pervasive in our society. Even us as informed people have to see through it sometimes.
Yeah. So I think that's a good place to move into that next story you're bringing up, though. We had in downtown Fresno, there was a Muslim that shot 3 people, and he openly expressed hatred towards whites and was screaming Allah Akbar. Do you have any more stuff on this, Bobby?
Well, I'll just go into the point of what he was saying with the AP. So we do know that he was shouting Allahu Akbar as he was being arrested afterwards. And the AP on their Twitter account said that he was shouting God is great, which, yes, that is the translation of Allahu Akbar, but obviously there's a lot difference, especially when you're changing that, because we all know what Allahu Akbar means. But the point is, they issued a correction saying, we incorrectly stated that he said God is great. We failed to state that he said it in Arabic. And it's like, okay, why don't you actually just say that he said Allahu Akbar?
So I got the story from the LA Times pulled up. Hate crime is suspected after a gunman kills 3 white men in downtown Fresno. And it came out on Wednesday. So it says, Corey Ali Muhammad told his family there was a war going on between blacks and whites in America. On social media, he referred to white people as devils. Earlier in the year, he released a rap album replete with violent, explicit, racially charged lyrics, including referring to himself in one song as a black soldier. On Tuesday morning, police said Muhammad stalked the streets of downtown Fresno, fatally shooting 3 white men with a .357 revolver. Before surrendering to the police, he allegedly shouted Allahu Akbar and expressed hatred towards white people and the government, according to Fresno Police Chief Jerry Dyer. Local authorities said they don't believe the attack was an act of terrorism, but they are investigating it as a hate crime. Quote, if in fact he lashed out at white people, white males in this case, that would constitute a hate crime, Dyer said. We believe it is a hate crime, definitely a hate crime. The chief said investigators don't believe Muhammad worked with anyone else in the attack, calling him an individual that was filled with hate, filled with anger. The attack occurred over less than 2 minutes, with Muhammad firing a total of 16 shots. Dyer said he surrendered to a responding officer without incident and later apologized to the chief. So he didn't get killed in the situation.
Yeah, I would also like to point out that just one paragraph later it says, in addition to Tuesday's killings, police said Muhammad was suspected in the fatal shooting of a security guard, also a white man, last week.
Oh, man. They suspect, so they didn't have any foreknowledge of this happening.
They suspected it might have been him.
Because he should have been in jail for that. Or at least, I don't know. Should there have been some sort of monitoring on this guy if there's no, like violent tendencies out of him? I don't know. The family should have said something about this. But, Kris, you disagree with this being classified as a hate crime, right?
For me, it's not. It's not.
Definitionally, there's no definition of hate crime. That's a problem. But
my issue is with the philosophy behind the idea of a hate crime. Let's say that someone slashes my tires because I'm gay versus slashing my tires for being an asshole. The end result is the same. The same damage would be done for slashed tires, but a hate crime will warrant more punishment. But what is the difference? What is being punished? The fact that they don't like me for being gay. That is punishment for thought. That's a thought crime. I don't believe in that whatsoever. But if we are going to have hate crimes on our law books, then it should be applied equally in the meantime until we can get it all abolished unilaterally.
yeah, and I also disagree. I disagree with hate crimes for that reason as well. Sam, do you have any thoughts on the situation that we've seen in Fresno?
Well, as far as that goes, I mean, I don't even have a different opinion. I have the same opinion on that.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, right, what's the definition? And how it's mainly targeting white people is really the bottom line. But I mean, I get what's going on here. I think it's pretty straightforward on what we've already talked about, how it's going.
Yeah, speaking of targeting white people, which is exactly what this guy did, his Facebook account was very, very racist. Because they said that on Sunday afternoon he posted a photo of himself wearing a colorful garnet with his head covered in the words, "Let black people go, or the doom increases. Reparations and separation now." And then on Monday he wrote, "My kill rate increases tremendously on the other side. Allahu Akbar."
So he's probably like a Nation of Islam radicalized.
Yeah, they said
black
he has a
nationalist.
lot of pictures with black nationalism flags and stuff like that on his Facebook account.
But see, the thing about Facebook is when you report a lot of these kind of things on Facebook, they'll allow it to stay on the platform. The only kind of stuff they take down, it seems these days, is like right-wing political expression, which we've seen a lot of instances of that happening.
Yeah, try uploading a Nazi flag and see how long that'll stay up.
Yeah, that'll go down very quickly, but there, like on Twitter, there's a lot of instances where, black people say death to the whites and whatnot, and that goes unchecked at all. These are private platforms, so it's up for them to do, but just the standard of what is considered hateful and needs to be taken off social media platforms is unjust. Nothing more to really say about this. Let's get into the next thing. So, the CIA and FBI are launching an investigation of who stole CIA documents and gave them to WikiLeaks. Do you want to say some stuff about this, Bobby?
I think we should go to Kris for this one.
All right, I have a dissenting opinion on this. I believe that, along the lines of John F. Kennedy, that the CIA should be broken up to itty-bitty pieces and scattered to the wind. And as long as these people aren't selling these state secrets for monetary gain, they're doing it out of their moral duties. The duty to the people supersedes their duty to the state.
And Sam, you were saying something about some deep state Obama supporters, right, earlier?
Yeah, I guess from my perspective, what I'm seeing is there's still loyalists, involved in this these law enforcement agencies. I mean, Trump really can't direct them for these investigations per se. And obviously, we all know that WikiLeaks helped out Trump a lot as far as the information that was out there. Now, whether or not Russia was the one doing all that, I don't personally think that's true, because I don't think WikiLeaks was working on behalf of Russia. And actually, I have heard people, just on the side note of that, some people have said, well, it's because WikiLeaks was unwittingly, working with Russia. Okay, whatever. But the point is that the information that came out definitely was, damaging to Hillary Clinton's campaign. Now, I think these loyalists that are still there are, they're going to be hurt about that, as far as their political views and what happened as far as who they expected to be president. Now, they are still in places of power or positions where they can decide, what is going to be the goals of these investigations. So, I mean, is Assange in trouble? Ultimately, he could be.
And, like we were saying about WikiLeaks, I'm very glad of the fact that so many documents hit WikiLeaks, especially since the fact that WikiLeaks goes so far to make sure that every single document that they put on there is 100% the truth and is verified to be accurate. And I'm glad that especially government corruption and illegal practices the knowledge of that is open to the public through WikiLeaks. But at the same time, if you view it from the point of view of the government, if you've got rogue officers in the CIA who are stealing your classified information and leaking it on the internet, that's not something that you exactly want to continue happening. Because although a lot of the documents that were leaked have proven to be, like illegal government practices, who knows what stuff that isn't illegal that we're doing that might not necessarily, it might not be illegal, but not exactly stuff that we want to know that we're doing. Different spying tactics, and we all know how we feel about spying, but still, a lot of that's not exactly information that you want to be stolen.
And we've been seeing early in this Trump administration, there's been a lot of leaks in his administration.
Yeah, and a lot of people that believe that that's just a lot of deep state people who are holdovers from the Obama administration who don't like the Trump administration and are actively working within the government to undermine his presidency.
Yeah, what personally comes to mind is the communication with the Australian, I believe it was the Prime Minister. And that was supposed to be a private negotiation. It's not the most important thing, the communication with Australia. But, when we're getting into deeper communication with, nations that we don't have the best of relationships with, we don't want these things getting out. So it looks like the federal government is seeking to arrest Assange, and they're continuing to go after Edward Snowden, I believe, as well. This is kind of garbage because Trump was on the side of Assange during the campaign. This is a betrayal in that aspect, which I'm not pleased about.
Yeah, I'm definitely not happy with the fact that the government wants to do that.
But Trump isn't coordinating this, but he has the ability to speak out against it.
And I think it was Jeff Sessions who was the one who made that statement, correct?
Oh, I don't know.
I believe
that.
It was Jeff Sessions. If not, I'll correct myself. But
I believe the arrest, it was Sessions.
Yeah, so all it would take is for Trump to tell Sessions, I don't want you to go after Assange, and Sessions would have to go along with him.
This is also, like, our viewpoint is it's generationally based, though. Like, both my parents, I know, want Edward Snowden to be in jail for what he did. So,
I mean, your parents both want him to be in jail. My father, when the information first started getting leaked, my dad wanted Edward Snowden to go in jail. But then once he actually found out what was in the information, my dad's a huge fan of Snowden now, as well as Assange. And 10 years ago, my dad would have been the complete opposite. So I guess that means, people change once they know more.
Do you think your parents maybe might change their opinion from different information?
I don't know. The one thing about things that like WikiLeaks is just most people don't really look into what has been leaked, and they just see it as, a breach of privacy of the government instead of having accountability towards the government. They see, Snowden as a traitor. That's how my parents see it. So.
Yeah, and like I was saying earlier about if you're the government, you don't want your documents to get leaked by some rogue employee. Like I said, most of the information that WikiLeaks publishes is stuff like, illegal practices that governments are doing, or communications that people should know about, secret backroom deals.
Yeah.
But
Violations of privacy or big
violations of
corruption
privacy,
scandals.
but not all the information that's classified that the CIA has is stuff that they're doing illegally. If you have a list of foreign people that you have working under aliases in foreign countries, you don't want that information getting out. And that information's classified. If someone has access to that and steals it and leaks it, you're putting the lives of our citizens in jeopardy because of that. And that's not exactly, that's not illegal practices that we're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I understand where the CIA and the FBI are coming from in wanting to figure out who's been stealing this information, as much as I like some of the information that has been stolen. I know it's kind of a weird way to phrase it, but I'll go back into what I said, and yeah, I definitely do disagree with what the administration's talking about and wanting to seek Assange's arrest.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on this? Okay, I think we're good to move on. Let's get into some immigration stuff. So the first article that we have, or first topic we have to go over, is Jeff Sessions saying that we're looking to label MS-13 it originates from El Salvador, but it's a Central American criminal gang. Chris, do you have something to say on this?
Actually, it originated from Los Angeles.
Los Angeles.
Yeah.
I know it has bases in El
Yes,
Salvador.
Mario Salvatrucha. This is actually where I changed my opinion on deporting all illegal immigrants, because I'm not going to get too much into this. There is an unintended consequence of deporting these illegal criminals, and the police on the streets, the ones who walk the beat, they actually tell you, yeah, these criminals, they come back in the U.S. within a couple weeks anyway. But when we deport them, we basically give them a free vacation. We export American gang culture to places like El Salvador, to where they have huge bases now. So where they went from a Los Angeles-based gang to an international gang because of that fact. They're all over Central America. They use American money to bribe and run the prisons in El Salvador and countries of the like. And these nations, I know I'm rambling on and on, they actually can't touch these criminals because they commit crimes in the United States, not in Central America. So they are free to come back, and they actually come back with a profit. The ones who experience border hoppers, they actually get new recruits to the MS-13, as I said before, Mario Salvatrucha, and they can easily get 1,000, 2,000 per head. They bring back to the United States. They walk back in with money in their pocket at the taxpayer dime.
And speaking of walking back in, this is actually relevant because Trump even tweeted this morning saying, quote, "The Democrats don't want money for the border, or don't want money from the budget going to the border wall, despite the fact that it will stop drugs and very bad MS-13 gang members." So I just thought that was relevant to what he tweeted this morning.
Yeah, so I wanted to correct what I said a little bit. So it doesn't originate from El Salvador, but it is predominantly El Salvadorian immigrants that constitute MS-13. In El Salvador, it is considered a terrorist group. It'd be good if we also considered them a terrorist group. But, so like my father's from Honduras. I've been to Honduras before. It's next door. There's also MS-13 in Honduras. And, Honduras is considered the murder capital of the world. There's a prison named Denali in Honduras, which actually my mom used to pass by this prison every single day when she lived in Honduras to go work in an orphanage. So it is a prison run by the inmates. There's only something like 6 or 7 actual prison guards, and they delegate one of the inmates, who's like a big criminal gang lord, to run the prison. And that's pretty much how most prisons are run in Central America. When we send back gang members, we extol American gang culture to Central America, and it increases recruiting, and then they have more recruits to come to the United States. So I do think criminals should go back, but we need to take more measures to make sure they don't come here. And I think maybe it might be useful to send aid to Central America to hold these prisoners if we're sending, more criminals back now. That would be definitely helpful to do so. I mean, as I said, there's prisons in Honduras run by criminals.
And
So.
that's the problem with sending them back, is they're going to want to come back after being sent back.
Which
you got to stop that from happening too.
It goes into some more things that we have happening in the administration. We have a report here that ICE arrests have doubled under Trump, so we're definitely getting a lot more people that need to leave out of the country. And we also have a report from the feds that we're deporting nearly every single illegal alien that we're detaining. So as far as getting them out of the country goes, we're definitely being more productive than we have in the past.
And aren't border crossings down like 75% already?
Yeah, we reported that last week. So it's like something like 75%, 80% down, which is great. It could still be down way more. Once the wall is built, it'll be almost zero. So that'll be great. But the big problem is just we need to set the standard of this is not tolerated in the United States. We're going to come down hard on these gangs. And, the big first step to do that is designating MS-13 a terrorist organization, which, the Obama administration wouldn't have done this. So it is, I love having Jeff Sessions as the Attorney General, and I'm glad this is happening.
Once they're finished designating MS-13 as a terrorist organization, they can declare Antifa a terrorist organization as well.
Yeah, they need to move on to that very quickly. Something tells me they won't, but any other thoughts on MS-13 being designated a terrorist organization?
No, I think that's a good stance.
I guess also I would point out, not to interrupt you, but, MS-13 is a very well-known, very famous gang. And there are a lot of other well-known famous gangs in the United States. So if you're going to start declaring gangs terrorist organizations, you can really clean up crime in the inner cities.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that we actually haven't talked about the tactics of the MS-13s to justify them being labeled as a terrorist organization. This is after last month where they found bodies in upstate New York in parks and warehouses. And this is the classic work of MS-13 to where they won't care. They would just... Oh yeah, fun fact. During the last roundup of gang members in upstate New York, 13 of the MS-13... they rounded up 13 MS-13 members, and 9 of them were found to be illegal aliens. Just a fun fact out there.
Yeah, so, MS-13, the article that Enzo was reading from, it says it has an estimated 10,000 members in the United States alone.
10,000?
10,000 in the United States alone, 30,000 worldwide.
So that's pretty significant.
So I don't want to use just one example of what you stated, but if you use that percentage, probably at least half to 3/4 of MS-13 gang members are probably in the United States illegally. So that's 5,000 to 7,500 criminals right there.
Yeah, and I'm always one to be suspect with when they give us numbers like that. I always believe that they're downplaying a little bit. They don't want to, show their incompetencies too much by saying, like, oh, there's 15,000 MS-13 gang members in the United States. So you need to take that with a pinch of salt, but still 10,000 is a lot. Let's get into this executive order that Trump put out on H-1B visas. This was one thing that he talked about during the campaign a lot, having an overhaul of H-1B visas, which, if you don't know what that is, certain employers are given the ability to have temporary guest workers from all across the world. A lot of them come from Mexico or India. That's predominantly where we get most of ours. But it allows these companies to undercut American workers, not have to hire Americans, and get labor for a lot less. One of the biggest places that abuses this the most is Silicon Valley, which, if they're forced to hire Americans, those would be great paying jobs for Americans, which is what I want to happen. But so Trump labeled this a Buy American, Hire American initiative. He signed this out of Kenosha, Wisconsin, which nice place. I've been there many times. And I just have to say, I'm pleased with this. This is another campaign promise fulfilled. This will be good for the American economy, good for American workers, good for American jobs, and we should be giving preference to our American workers over people from all across the world.
And one thing that a lot of Democrats and liberals do like to point out is that a majority of the illegal aliens in the United States did not come here illegally. They came here legally on things like H-1B visas, temporary work visas. But when the visa was up, they didn't leave, and they stayed here.
Yeah, that's also definitely a big problem we have with these programs. And if you look at H-1B visas in particular, they hand these things out like candy, like it's widely abused. Which is why this is in the immigration portion, even though it's not illegal immigration. Illegal immigration still has harmful benefit, or it still affects the United States in harmful ways, and there's still ways with legal immigration that we need to fix, and this is one situation.
I mean, I do have a little bit to say on the H1N1 visas. I was stationed in California, so I did know a couple folks in the tech sector. And one of the things is I do sympathize with them in the meantime because there is a shortage of Americans who are going for computer science degrees, STEM degrees as a whole. So that's why they say we need the H1N1 visas to fill in the gaps. Otherwise, you can't hire a gender studies major for a tech company.
Yeah, and also his executive order, it doesn't affect current people who have H-1B visas. It's just in the future.
So it's reforming the program for the future.
Correct. And the people who are already in get grandfathered in. So
yeah,
they don't have anything to worry about.
So I guess with what you're saying there, the current labor situation with H-1B visas will stay the same, but we need to see more Americans coming after these jobs. And I think if we know these jobs aren't going to be taken by foreign nationals, it will encourage people to go after these jobs because they'll be higher paying. They'll be forced to pay higher wages. Incentive-wise, it works out. We'll have to see how the industry goes with that. But
well, I just hope this isn't regulation, for political gain. I mean, like you said, it is a promise, but it is regulation as far as like on the free market.
Well, it's reforming the labor market to give preference towards Americans.
Yeah. I mean, in theory, it sounds good, and I do agree with it, because honestly, we've been getting screwed on the world market. But, I mean, it's still not free market in a lot of situations, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not 100% free market. This is where everyone has very different opinions on the free market in this room.
Well, the thing about free market is you have to make a distinction between the overall free market or specify the free market of labor.
Kris, what's your opinion on the free movement of people in a free market sense? Because I know that's a huge libertarian thing, and we're all, I guess, former libertarians, most of us. But
yeah, I'm with the right libertarians on this school of thought that we don't believe in the inherent freedom of people because we believe that people have the people have a right to form their own communities, and a state is an extension of these communities. So you're impeding on these rights as well.
Yeah. And that's how I view it, in about the same sense. Yeah. Any other thoughts on this before we move on? I think we're good.
Don't study gender studies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get into something like STEM. I would discourage getting a teaching degree, but I mean, I almost have mine.
STEM.
It's so sexist. Okay, so here's a downer for the week. This is definitely not good what's happening. Trump is potentially clearing amnesty for the Dreamers. So, Bobby, do you want to talk about that a bit?
Well, what he said was when they were asking Trump about President Obama's DACA, which is the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, which is pretty much part of what the DREAM Act is, which is, children of illegal immigrants, and then the DREAM Act is saying that illegal immigrants can, they can use schools like colleges and stuff.
They
like
get
that.
in-state tuition
Correct.
rates
But
as opposed to having out-of-state, which is what they used to
But
have.
I don't think that they are eligible for federal aid, though. Is that
I
right?
don't believe they are.
Well, we'll have to confirm that. But what Trump's statement was, he was saying, rest easy, this is a case of heart. And they said that, and here's actually the quote, it is, federal enforcement agencies are not going after the dreamers. They're going after the criminals first, and that is their policy. So a lot of Trump supporters are seeing this as one of his biggest flip-flops, saying that, he said he wanted to go after dreamers and go after children of illegal immigrants who are in the country illegally, and now they're saying that, they're not going to go after them. But I'd like to present a dissenting opinion to where, if you're going to go after all illegal immigrants, you might as well go after the criminal ones first, hence what we were just talking about with MS-13. It's best to, if you're going to use your state resources, use it after the people who, I guess I could use the word deserve it more, not the sense to say that, some people don't deserve it because, they have to go back. But if you're going to do it, go after the criminals first, then go after the people who are, I don't really want to use the word living their lives, but I'm sure you all know what I mean when I say that. But also, the thing is, that was Trump's statement. Sessions, however, who is controlling the Justice Department, is actually offering the exact opposite of what Trump is saying. He's saying, no, we're still going after the dreamers. So if you think about it part of this way, a lot of people will talk about, okay, what's Trump's strategy? What's his 4D chess move that he's trying to make? And this is something he's done throughout his campaign. Confuse your enemy. Offer two different conflicting opinions. Make them think that say something which might piss off your base. But at the same time, what are you actually doing? What's Sessions actually doing? Sessions is still going after these people. Trump said, don't worry about it, you'll be fine. But under the rug, he's doing what his base wants him to do. So a lot of his base is very mad at him for saying this, but I look at actions, not words. They're still going after them. That's why, I disagree with the fact that he said it, but if he's doing that purposely to confuse the left or confuse the enemy, then that's okay with me.
Oh yeah, he's getting good grades in policy on that for me, for sure.
So what we know is currently there's 770,000 illegal aliens that are part of DACA. I believe there's something like 1.8 potentially people that would be eligible for it. Deferred action of childhood arrivals means that if you came before you're 18 years old, you're not going to be deported. And I take a lot of issue with this actually, because immigration was one of the pretty much the most important thing of Trump's platform. And the way I see it is these are still people that are going to have children that are going to vote for Democrats. Like, that's the thing. I don't want the right to handicap themselves by giving amnesty to these people. During the campaign, Trump said, when he was asked about dreamers, I care about American dreamers more. And that's my stance. I'm sorry, this isn't nice. This is kind of mean, but our country comes first. Our citizens come first. And I want, resources to go to our people. It's really frustrating to me. I don't know. Kris, do you have any opinions on this?
I believe that this is not going to be political reality, but what Trump could do is to use Justin Trudeau's virtue signaling against him. Back during the entire Muslim ban hysteria, Justin Trudeau went on public record saying that Canada will accept any refugee that the U.S. will reject. Why not extend that to every dreamer? So the left can be appeased by saying, okay, these people are going, but they're going towards their liberal utopia of Canada.
And like I was saying before, all we have right now is a statement that Trump said. We haven't actually seen that the Justice Department is stopping going after dreamers. We haven't seen that. So I'm going to take the wait and see attitude. And if the policy actually changes to where they're not going after dreamers, then I'll be more mad. But as of right now, all we have is what he said, and what they're actually doing is continue to do what he said he would do. So I'm just going to wait and see, and I'll eat my words if I'm wrong.
Yeah, and if Trump makes this concession, it's not enough for me to lose my support for him because he's still going after a lot of illegal aliens. And I think DACA individuals, of all the people that could stay here, are probably on the better side of who could stay here. But
For sure.
Yeah.
I'm still against this stuff. I actually have an ex-girlfriend that I'm pretty sure is a dreamer. And, I don't hate her at all, but, I still stand by my political beliefs, so she can go back.
You know what? I saw an interesting opinion yesterday on Fox of all places, right? Saying that some of the tactics that Trump is actually doing is breaking through that either or mentality that people develop. Like, say, you're either against the wall or you're for the wall. But he takes a third option where, yes, we're gonna have a wall, but we're gonna have a big, beautiful gate for people to come into. You know what I mean? So he is breaking that prison that we put ourselves into, where it has to be either this or against. Build bridges, not walls, or build a fucking wall. You know what I mean? Choose
Yeah.
one. No. Trump wants to get people to come through the gate. Well, that's what is best for America.
And we elected Trump to be a deal maker. And when you're making deals, when you negotiate, you're not going to get every point that you want to keep. And we knew that going in. So for any of us to pretend like, that he's going to do every single thing that he promised to do, we knew ahead of time that he's not going to accomplish every little thing. So for someone to say like, oh, I'm going to stop supporting him over this one little issue. Well, instead of stop supporting him over this one issue, look at everything else he's done that you do agree with. If you can get 9 victories before 1 loss, that's still a 90% win record, and you're going to make the playoffs, using a sports analogy.
Yeah, I'm okay with the concession here, and in general, Trump is still doing better things than negative things in my viewpoint at the moment. For me, a lot of love is lost ever since the Syria airstrikes. I've still been very down. It doesn't feel the same way supporting Trump. I still tacitly do. I don't know what y'all's opinions on supporting Donald Trump is, but if he continues to do things like this that piss me off, I might have to stop supporting Trump for a little bit, which is sad because I'm like one of the biggest supporters that was around. But I still believe strongly to what he campaigned on, and he needs to do good by his supporters first and foremost. Are y'all still behind Donald Trump at the moment?
Oh, strongly, nearly 100%.
Strongly?
Yeah, I think Syria was a smart move ultimately because weighing options for positive, negative, I think the positive outweighs everything. Our enemies are actually scared of us again. That's not a bad thing, Trump really confuses the enemies, like you're saying. He kind of comes in a way with a tactic that, look over here. I don't want him to do that to his supporters.
Yeah.
And I don't think he is. I mean, I think that he really messed up healthcare in trying to push it too much and kind of lying about what he had. He didn't really have the numbers, right? But I don't think, based on what I see in my perspective, that he's doing that to his supporters. I just think that he's Trump, so he's thinking ahead of time. Now, like I said, the Syria thing, I'm anti-war, but sometimes you have to make a show of force to prevent other loss of life, loss of the gains we've made. So.
And that was precisely the opinion that I took after the Syria strike. And like I said, every time I do it, I just mention, remember, he was sitting with Chinese President Xi while he made the decision while it happened, and they were talking about North Korea, and look what's going on with North Korea right now. China has already said that they're going to stop buying North Korean coal. They're buying American coal. That helps our economy.
Yeah.
That hurts North Korea. Make a military show force, and all the people are like, oh my God, World War III is starting. And look what happened. Nothing happened. Because you got to take a wait-and-see attitude, see what happens, make a rational decision, don't make emotional decisions. We like to make fun of the left because they make emotional decisions. That night, I saw way too many people making emotional decisions. I said, wait it out, think of what's actually happening, look at all the facts, then make a decision, see what happens.
And the fact is that Trump has the final word on when the strike goes down. Like, what is the timing? He does have that final word. And sure, he went on TV saying, oh, I had a great piece of chocolate cake with the Chinese president. But that's not how the Chinese felt about it, okay? They didn't think, oh, what a great dessert. In my opinion, if I had been in that seat, I'd have been scared shitless, okay? If I was the president. And that is a tactical move on Trump's. He's playing global politics now.
He's being the president.
He's leading. He's being a world leader.
Kris, where are you at with your support for the Donald at the moment?
Yeah. I am proud to be one of the members, as you call it, the people making emotional decisions during that time. I am but by no means am I a significant political figurehead, but a lot of people who were the spear of Donald Trump's campaign from Miley Yiannopoulos, Lawrence Southern, Nigel Farage, name a few, even Marine Le Pen, was adamant against the Syrian airstrikes.
Yeah.
We all believe that this was the wrong move to get involved. But it de-escalated, and a lot of us said as long as he de-escalates, we can forgive him on this one, but we will remember, because we are not Obama-level sheep.
Yeah, that's about where I am. I think in a sense, we're coming up on the 100-day mark of the Trump administration, and some of the honeymoon effect for me, being in love with Donald Trump and like him winning is the best thing ever. Obviously, my attitude is going to change a bit about that. He can't be 100% perfect. He's still human. He does things I like and I don't like, but as long as this de-escalation of conflict happens, I'm fine saying that I support Donald Trump. But if it goes back to where it was when these airstrikes happened, I have to stop it. One of the reasons why I voted for him was because I thought he was going to fix relations with Russia. I thought he'd take off sanctions on Russia, which if you look at the Matt Flynn controversy, it seems like we're going to do that. But ever since they got Flynn out, and who did they replace him with? McMaster, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was a bad decision.
Terrible.
McMaster's the one that wants us to get 100,000 troops in Syria.
Garbage. I will say I am mad about that. I am pissed about some of these choices that Trump has made to put these people in these positions, but you just got to go with it, because there's no other choice. So.
You know what, though? Honestly, it's like you said. There's no other choice, because let's just say the opposite was happening. Right away, he takes sanctions off Russia. That plays right into the narrative that the propaganda campaign has been pushed on us. Now, hey, we're not going to believe it in this room. But let me tell you, there's a lot of people out there that the only thing they believe is what they see when they pop open MSNBC.com or whatever, MSN.com on their browser, or CNN.com daily. So that's all they get, and I'm not saying that he has to weigh his options. I'm not saying that he has kept every promise that I would want him to keep either. But there's many cars on this Trump train. You know what I mean? And that's why he's got to expand his base and keep the people, of course, who already put him there. But like you said too, we want to go ahead and hold his feet to the fire. That's the smart thing to do, Chris. Of course.
It's been interesting, since the airstrike in Syria 2 weeks ago. When it first happened, his approval rating dropped about 35. But I've seen polls at this point where he's polling 50, maybe even above 50 approval rating. I thought it was going to drop, after these strikes, but it seems like most Americans actually support the action that he took at this point. I think it kind of is building consensus behind him as a world leader for the United States. But it doesn't represent what I wanted out of Donald Trump at all.
Sure.
Yeah, and if you also think about it, when Trump was campaigning, he was campaigning a lot about how, the world doesn't respect the United States anymore. We're the laughing stock. And, the world respects us again. So
yeah.
I disagreed with the missile strike, but I was taking the attitude then of I don't think it's going to be as big deal as people are making it out to be. And was it a good decision? I still don't think so. But there are silver linings to things, and, everything has 2 or 3 different viewpoints that you can take from it. And I hate to be the guy that says the truth is somewhere in the middle, but a lot of times that is the truth.
The search for truth is hard, as Mike Cernovich recently said in an interview on 60 Minutes. And it is hard to make a truth of this world, and we're just trying to do our best to make sense of it all. And we can just make our opinions on what we do know of the world. So, that's just the honest truth. But that was a big tangent, but I think it's still important to touch on where we are with our support of Donald Trump. But I want to get into some of this economic stuff now. So the first thing we just want to go over is the decline in brick and mortar stores across the country. We're seeing a major decline, numbers that we haven't seen since the 2008 recession, actually bigger. Since April 6th, we've seen 2,880 retailers closing announcements this year, which is double what we saw last year in the United States. as far as bankruptcies are going for retailers, we've seen 10 so far this year, and 9 total bankruptcies happened last year. So we're seeing a lot of retailers going out of business. This is obviously having to do with a huge rise in online shopping we're seeing with Amazon and the likes. But I don't know. I just want to get y'all's thoughts on this because obviously the economy is changing, and this, has been a huge mainstay of the American economy, and we knew this was going to happen at some point, but
Yeah, and the thing about this is if you just make the statement that a lot of brick and mortar stores are closing, a lot of people might think that that means that, the economy isn't doing very good or we're in a recession period, but the complete opposite is true. The economy is starting to do very good. Sales are at record highs. And this article that we have, it's from Seeking Alpha when it's talking about it. It goes on to say brick and mortar stores, these mom and pop stores, they're being put out of business because you have things like Walmart and Target and Barnes and Noble, Toys R Us, online shopping. You've got, Walmart does a lot of online shopping now. If you're going to go to Walmart and pick something up, you might have a mom and pop store down the street that sells something. But if I can click and go to Amazon and get it, with 1-day delivery, instead of having to drive down there, check to see whether or not they even have something, pay the price, drive back. If I can just say, I might need this in the future, click, order, 2 days later it's there. Congratulations, you got it. So I'm just going to take the one little viewpoint of this is that, yeah, like Enzo said, we knew this was going to happen. The more online shopping you have, you're consolidating it down. I don't really want to say into monopolies, but, it's true. The bigger stores like Walmart, Target, they're killing out the smaller stores. And online shopping is killing out the smaller stores as well. So it's just, all I want to say is it's not indicative of the economy is going bad. It's really, if you want to think about it, it's the free market at work.
it's changing.
Yeah.
Do y'all have any other thoughts on this?
This is going to come to the smaller mom and pop stores regardless, as we've seen with Blockbuster displacing the mom and pop video stores and Netflix displacing Blockbuster. How these small retail stores survive, these mom and pop shops, they survive in niche environments. For example, you see Koreatown stores, Filipino ethnic food stores that survive just on that brand. However, with the advent of online shopping, we can find a plethora of selections of a huge diverse range. Then these stores, which found their niche to survive, found themselves displaced yet again.
Yeah, I had 2 little things I wanted to comment just on what you said. So, actually this week, I was in the high school, teaching, and a student asked, was Blockbuster a video store? I think she was about like 15 years old, so the concept of even a video store is foreign to the kids coming up these days. It really shocked me when I was in the room because, I didn't go to Blockbuster per se, a little bit, but I did go to a video store throughout my childhood growing up in Wisconsin. And another thing I just wanted to touch on with you saying was actually my parents growing up had like an ethnic grocery store for about 1.5 years. But just the market wasn't really there for that, and we had to declare bankruptcy. And I guess just people don't really want mom and pop stores so much. People, they express a desire for it, but when it comes down to it, the prices are higher, and they don't want to pay it.
Yeah, I believe where they can survive, at least for the moment, so we can get robots to do this work for us, is the small non-franchise, non-commercial chain restaurants. People still want to get the ethnically cooked foods from genuine ethnics.
Yeah.
It's an odd way to put it, but
It's kind of like when we went to
No, exactly.
Disneyland and you requested an Asian waiter.
Hey, Disney delivered, so.
You should tell this story just right now, quickly.
All right.
It's a good one.
All right, so we were in Disneyland for an Americans for Prosperity event, and we were celebrating.
Me and Bobby were there with Kris, also a couple other friends.
Yes, so we decided to go to Disneyland, and there was this Asian shop, and one of my friends, she joked about getting Asian waitress because she is a freaking weeaboo.
It was Ariel we had on last week that
Yes.
wanted to go to the Japanese restaurant.
Yes, weeaboo Ariel. She loves Japanese culture, Jap culture. Even though, just a side note, Filipinos, like other Asians, we hate Japs, but that's besides the point.
Well, they killed y'all
I mean, yeah,
in like mass.
almost definitely. But anyway,
Besides the point.
So we're at the front counter. I decided to make good on this joke, and I said, "Hey, I'm just gonna do it." Then I asked the front staff. A lot of them were gathered. There was the male host, and he was surrounded by a bunch of female waitresses. None of them Asian. So I just said point blank, "Hey, we like a table for 5, and can I also get an Asian waitress? This is very important to my culture." And all these Asian ladies, I mean, not these non-Asian ladies, they just looked offended. But the host, he was an Asian dude, he said, "I got you." And so we got our seats, and we got an Asian waitress.
From Japan.
Yes, all the way from. Thank you, Disney, for your imports.
I don't know what the visa's anymore, though.
Hey, she can stay. She doesn't have to go back.
I mean, it's kind of a specialty thing. Maybe we could make a case. I mean, I don't think we're completely ending H-1B visas, but we're definitely cracking down on who we allow use them. I know there's a lot of like construction companies that abuse them.
Yeah.
So
that program needs to be reformed because they're hoarding all the H-1B visas to pay low wages.
yeah.
Yeah, and if anything, like I was saying, a majority, well, I don't know if it's a majority, but a very large number of the people who are in this country illegally are visa overstays. So if anything, reform the system so that you're tracking the people who are still here when their visas are up. That way you can say, hey, get out.
Bigly.
So if anything, yeah, that's one thing that should be done.
Yeah. So I wanted to quickly go into 2 situations that we've seen. The U.S. Justice Department has actually been going after some companies. The first one is Volkswagen, which is going to be forced to pay the $2.8 billion fine for a diesel emissions scandal. And it has to do with nearly 600,000 diesel cars in the U.S. were programmed to turn on pollution controls during testing, but turned it off while on the road, the company admitted. So they're lying about the emissions of their cars. So it's good that the Justice Department is cracking down on false advertising.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a case that's been going on for several years now.
Yeah, I drive a Volkswagen, so I don't want them going after my company, but I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, what
it's
do you
fine.
think it says about the company, though, if they knew that was happening? I mean, as far as the culture goes?
I mean, their stock dropped immensely after it came out because they realized that they were cheating and lying, not only to their customers, but governments as well.
Yeah, and another company that was cracked down on is a Brazilian engineering company named Odembrecht, which is going to receive a $2.6 billion fine in relations to various criminal corruption cases, kind of a criminal conspiracy actually going on. Only only $93 million are going to go to the United States. $2.39 billion is going to go to Brazil, and $116 million is going to Switzerland. But I guess it's good that the Justice Department's going after large companies that are, doing fraudulent things.
Yeah, and a lot of people talk about, the free market this, the free market that. The free market does not like fraud. The free market does not like corruption because that is going against what a free market believes in. So if you're going to have a government getting involved in the economy, it should be to go after fraud. It should be to go after corruption. That's, a lot of people think that, to what extent should it be involved? That's what I say.
Yeah, and it's promising that the Trump administration's Justice Department is cracking down on unfair business practices, I just believe in general. Any other thoughts on this, or should we move on? Okay, let's move on. So there was an executive order that came out this week by Trump to identify and reduce tax regulation. I got to see which day it came out. But
came out on the 21st, which was
Thursday. Friday?
Friday.
Okay,
the 21st.
Yeah. So essentially, what it's doing is it's having the Treasury Secretary go over every single tax regulation that's been imposed since January 1st of 2016. So during the Obama administration, and we're going to continue to look for ways to reduce unnecessary tax regulations and increases on people which are for taxation, which is unnecessary, which is good because Trump wants to promote economic growth through lowering taxes, which we're pretty much about to get into. We might as well get into it right now since we're talking about tax reform. But just this executive order is showing that we're going to take initiative and reduce unnecessary tax burdens, which is great. I'm glad that Trump's making headway in completing campaign promises towards improving our tax situation, because it's terrible, as Bobby would know, being an accountant major.
Yeah, that's correct.
So, Bobby, you know some more about this tax reform that we're planning to do, right?
Correct. So, and Trump even tweeted this, and he said that on Wednesday he's going to be introducing his big old tax reform package that he was talking about throughout the entire campaign. And one of the things he said he wanted to do was get the different God, I can't remember what the word was, but the tax brackets, get them down from like 5 of them to 3, and then significantly lower them from there, so that the highest bracket I think was only like 33%, which right now it's like 39%. But
yeah,
it would be changing those down essentially, and people who don't make very much money wouldn't have to pay hardly any taxes at all.
I believe the bottom bracket, which, I mean, I can pull it up. I'm looking on his website because I know he has like white papers on what he wants to do. But the bottom tax bracket, which would be your lower income people, would pay 15% income tax. I think the middle bracket would be about 25%, and he's looking to do 35% for, or what did you say for the upper
The upper
bracket?
one I think was 33.
33. I remember during the campaign he was saying 35, but I mean he might have changed it a little bit.
Yeah.
But
well, I was going to say, but the most important thing was the corporate tax rate, because the United States corporate tax rate is 35%.
one of the highest in the world.
It is the highest in the world, if not second highest. But yeah, it's one of the highest in the world, if not the highest. And he said he wants to get that down to 15%. So that's a 20% reduction in a tax rate. That's part of the reason why the stock market exploded and went so high after his
he announced he's going to do this.
After the election.
After the election.
Because people realized, hey, if we're about to get Trump, we're about to get lower taxes. So if you understand how stock markets adjust and price themselves, that's part of the reason why it went up. That, and plus you have a whole new era of more pro-business growth and all that stuff factored in. But if you realize, right after Paul Ryan's healthcare plan failed, and there's a lot of chaos going on within Congress, there was talk that, his tax reform package, it might get delayed. We might not see it for another 6 months. And stock market started going down because they realized, well, if we know in the future we're eventually going to get this package, but if we're going to get it a year from now as opposed to 6 months when we thought we were going to get it, that caused the markets to go down. So I'll be interested to see how the markets react Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and then the week after that as to what actually happens.
I've seen Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, say that we should look to see tax reform signed into place by August, which would definitely be on track.
Definitely, yes.
But yeah, this is actually one of the most exciting things happening right now. If Trump is able to do this, this will be a major win, huge campaign promise fulfilled. Definitely, especially seeing the corporate tax rate dropped, because we do experience corporate exodus. And I think Donald Trump, of all people that ran, understands this more than anyone. Donald Trump has a corporation, and he understands how corporate tax affects businesses. And he wants to see, businesses do well in our country as opposed to other countries. He wants to get the burdens which stand in these corporations' ways and extol the wealth that we should be pursuing.
And not only that, but I can get the official numbers if I actually looked it up. But something like only 15 or something percent of all the money the United States takes in revenue is from corporate taxes. So it's not like saying, if you cut it by 20%, you're going to lose a lot of income. Most of the income in the United States comes from your Social Security taxes and your individual income taxes.
Yeah.
Corporate taxes, although they pay a lot more money than individuals, it doesn't add up to be as much.
Yeah, it is not the most important tax base to maintain high taxes on.
But
It's not one you want to do that to. So.
yeah, but I was also going to say is, the entire U.S. economy, we have a consumer-driven economy. We rely around businesses being able to do what they want, and people buy, people get hired. We have the market at work in the way that it does in the United States. So if you have a pro-business attitude, you're going to have pro-growth. You're going to see bigger profits. You're going to see higher wages. And like I said, the fact that you're cutting the corporate tax rate, that means the companies will have more money. They'll be able to invest more. They might be able to pay their people more. If you're thinking about making a decision saying, okay, if I want to invest and maybe create this new gadget, which could significantly help people's lives, but we might not have the money for it. All of a sudden, boom, we have the money for it.
This doesn't only affect the perspective of American companies, though. Since the election, we've seen plenty of foreign companies say that they will invest because of Donald Trump is the president now, billions of dollars. The second we drop this corporate tax rate down, we will see more companies saying, "Oh wow, the United States is a great place to invest in." All of a sudden,
Yeah. And not only that, but there's a lot of money that corporations hold overseas, which a lot of people complain about the fact that they do. The reason they do that is because it's very difficult and it's actually very tax heavy to move that money back into the United States. So one of the things people are looking out for is the fact that there might be something included in that tax policy about repatriating that money back into the United States, which would significantly also help the economy.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have, hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars in cash. Well, cash, I use that with air quotes around it, that's being kept overseas. If you can move that money back to the United States, think what can happen to the economy when that happens.
And Donald Trump has talked about breaking or cracking down on companies that abuse tax hole loops abroad, and he wants to, punish companies that move out of the United States. But if we lower the corporation tax, especially, I mean, there is no reason for them to do so, and I still believe the United States is a great place to invest in, especially the American people we have here are some of the best workers in the world still. And we should be, encouraging development which takes advantages of our strengths. And that's still the American people. But to do that, we need corporations coming here and investing in plants here, which, we've been reporting about, since the very beginning we've been doing the show. We've been saying, factories are coming in. Wasn't it last week GM, or it was Ford for Kentucky, built a new plant? They're investing in billions of dollars. I don't know, just great winning across the board. Hopefully tax reform passes. Any thoughts, Sam or Chris?
Yeah, I would just also like to say that a lot of Trump supporters, especially on Twitter, they don't really care about tax reform. Because they're like, Trump needs to focus on the big issues like immigration, stuff like that. But one of the biggest issues he had was tax reform. That's something that every American wants to see.
I think if there's tax reform and immigration continues to be worked on, and we begin building the wall during this first his first term, I think there's a great chance of 2020 re-election.
And a lot of people from his base that are kind of, slightly losing support when it comes to paying that federal income tax 2 years from now, and they realize, hey, I'm paying half of what I used to pay. They might rethink that.
Which should be awesome.
Can you imagine how our election would be if election day was the day after tax day?
Oh yeah, Republicans would always win, or at least people who say they want lower taxes would always win.
Yeah.
But, also we got this other article, and I think it's time to move on.
Yeah.
That the number of people collecting unemployment right now is at a 17-year low. And that has been going down since during Obama's era as well. So it's not to say that that's entirely Trump's fault, but it's definitely not going up.
We can say, though, that the job growth that we've seen in the country is outperforming predictions immensely. So in that sense, Donald Trump is to be accredited, or the Trump administration can be accredited for helping get this unemployment, people collecting unemployment benefits down.
Yeah, and according to this graph they have here, the last time the number of people collecting unemployment dropped below 2 million people was back in like 2001. So, like I said, yeah, it's at a 17-year low, which makes sense if you think about it, 2017, 2000, 2001.
And this is an article on MarketWatch.com,
Correct,
just
yeah.
in case anyone wanted to know.
Yeah, and they've actually got a really interesting graph showing the different recessions and stuff. In 2000 and, let's see, 5, 6, 7... Yeah, in 2008, it was right around about 2.5 million people. And by 2010 in January, it was over 6.5 million. So, you know, we've significantly come down from that. But, yeah, we're starting to reach the point where it kind of has to bottom out at some point. And that's the fear that some people have is that, okay, once you bottom out, there's nowhere to go but up.
No, yeah, that is.
And we definitely don't
an
want it
issue.
to go back up. So if anything, Trump should be worrying about, okay, now that it's down, keep it down. Because you know you're not going to be able to go too much lower at some point. Of course, you want to go as low as you possibly can, but definitely don't keep it up.
Yeah. So, let's get into the next story that we have. Trump awarded a Purple Heart at the Walter Reed Hospital. I know, Bob, you know about this. Sam, don't you also know some about this?
Actually, I just read the headline.
Oh.
What were you gonna say, Bobby?
Well, I was going to say, Chris, you're the veteran, so you want to talk about this?
Like, honestly, I don't see why the media is trying to still put a negative spin on Trump awarding the veteran the Purple Hearts.
Yeah, so there is like a controversy amongst the fake news, the mainstream media, in terms of this Purple Heart. What was it that they're going? Or
Because when
they're
he gave,
concerned
when
about?
he gave it, when he gave it to the, when he gave it, he said, "Congratulations on behalf of Melania, myself, and the entire nation. Tremendous." And they're criticizing him because he said congratulations to someone who was wounded.
Yeah, congratulations for having to get this medal.
Congratulations on surviving. I think the guy lost his leg, I think.
See, it just seems like he's honoring them, though. In my point of view, he's like, congratulations for giving service to your country that is worthy of the President of the United States.
Yeah. And, you know,
Yeah, for sure. I
don't
would look at it that way.
don't
As
a lot
well.
of folks in the military, they say congratulations and stuff like this a lot. Yeah, Chris nodded his head. But, you know, we're used to hearing the whole, oh, you know, thank you for your service. But, you know, he's saying congratulations. You know, not only do I say thank you for serving, but, you know, you've been injured in the line of duty. The guy had his right leg below the knee amputated.
Do you know the name of this guy?
Yeah, it was, his last name is Barrientos. Just trying to see what, yeah, Sergeant First Class Alvaro Barrientos. He was wounded March 17th in Afghanistan.
Afghanistan. March 17th of this year.
Correct.
Well, it's good that he's being recognized by the president. It's complete garbage that people are up in arms about this. But this actually ties into the next thing we're going to talk about, which is, so there's pulling out, isn't it? Or just, how did they calculate this number?
This is from newsbusters.org, which
Yeah.
I'm assuming they did their own independent research for it.
Yeah. But their research says that 89% of all mainstream media coverage of Trump is negative, which, I mean, I'm not one to believe that's wrong. But you know, it just ties into what we're just saying. They're trying to make controversy that will, you know, downplay, you know, the positives of Trump just out of thin air. They're trying to build controversy. And it's ridiculous. We've been seeing this nonstop. The mainstream media won't get their, you know, act together and actually report honestly, you know, which a lot of them said they were going to do. Like the New York Times came out and said, you know, we were very biased during the election and we're going to try and regain your trust. But they haven't done that if you look at what they've been doing. You know, this dishonest mainstream media, the fake news. And people are still tuning in somehow, though. Especially, we've been seeing growth amongst liberals tuning in now to watch the mainstream news.
Yeah, Maddow's ratings are through the roof. They've never been higher. So it's a lot of people, I guess, just wishing that his legitimacy is on the decline.
Well, part of the reason why Maddow is because she is now the voice of the opposition to the government. Whereas, you know, you had a lot of people, especially like CNN, that are kind of wishy-washy. They might say something positive here, you might say something negative here. I mean, I don't watch her, but her stuff is almost entirely negative against Trump.
Yeah.
And if you're someone who doesn't like Trump, are you going to go to someone who's positive 15% of the time or someone who's only positive 0% of the time?
And you look at our show, we come out and say, oh, we all support Donald Trump, but we'll still clearly talk about the negative things.
We had like a 10-minute segment earlier when we were talking about things that we disagreed with him.
Oh yeah, DACA,
whether or not we even still support him.
Yeah, but we're still, able, because we are admitting our bias, to come out and say like, oh, here are positive things that Donald Trump is doing, and we can justify it. If the media is being honest, it's not going to be 89% negative.
If the media was being honest, it would be about 50-50.
Yeah.
Criticize 50% of the time for what's bad.
You'd think if his approval rating is about 50%, they would have something good to say which would justify why they're pulling that way. But, I mean, you talk about mainstream media polling.
I guess I would say, if the media was 50-50 in terms of, positive and negative coverage, imagine how much higher his approval rating would be.
Oh, it would be through the roof.
It wouldn't be like, I think Rasmussen has his polling at like 50% recently. It'd probably be at least 55 to 60.
There'd be so many people which would see all these great things that we always get to talk about every single week. Every single week there's good developments. Things are improving.
Yeah, and I mean, even back to just after the election, I was taking a political science class I was pretty much the only Trump supporter in the room. But if you guys remember back when Trump made his RNC speech, he talked about protecting, the gay community.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And he got a standing ovation from a Republican crowd when he said that. And there was someone in the class who was, I'm guessing she was part of the LGBT community, but she said something along the lines of, I'm worried what he's going to do to the gay people. And I told her what he said, and she said, when did he say that? As if she was denying that he ever said it. I said, go watch his RNC acceptance speech. He got a standing ovation from a Republican crowd. She had never heard that before.
No, the media didn't report on that.
Yeah, and if they had reported on that, obviously her view changed. Because she said, okay, I'll look into that. But she sounded sincere when she said, I'll look into that.
Well, they don't want a repeat of their flub that happened in 2016 because they want to win in 2020. Now, with what they're doing, we can obviously break down is a losing strategy because they're doing the same thing.
They're doubling
not learning
down.
their lesson.
They're not learning the lesson. Yeah, they're doubling down on what they did.
But they don't see that yet. They don't understand. So when 2020 happens, maybe that'll snap them into shape a little bit because at this rate, he's already, in my book, elected with what they're doing.
I'm more worried about the 2018 midterms, especially the Senate.
I could definitely be
because, like I said, there's 33 Senate seats up for re-election.
Yeah.
8 are Republican, 25 are Democrat. Of those 25, 10 are states that Trump won.
I definitely hope we can make some gains, but this does, depend on what the Trump administration can do before then. And these, Republican elected senators will be judged by what the Trump administration does because we control the Congress, the Senate, and the presidential, office. We should be getting things done.
Supreme Court, too.
And the Supreme Court. Yeah, we have a majority of conservatives now in the court. We just got Gorsuch through.
Right.
But, I just want to say, like, you look at the state of the fake news in the current year, 2017. Could you imagine if they stay at the same trend, what it'll be when the re-election process starts again, 2019? We're going to have a whole year of, constant Trump bashing, but they've already used all their powder trying to get him with these scandals in the 2016 election.
And this time Trump will be able to point out results.
Yeah.
Not just saying, here's what I want to do. He'll say, here's what I've done.
Compared to what has anyone in the Democratic Party done since the election?
Well, that's entirely, I think I said this a couple weeks ago. What has the Democrat Party done to try to win back the votes of middle-class people in Rust Belt states? Absolutely nothing. And so you have stuff like jobs returning. Why do you think Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Ohio voted for Trump? A lot of that had to do with, we're going to get manufacturing jobs back. We're going to lower your taxes.
Which, guess what, has been happening.
Which has happened. So now all he says is, hey, you elected me to do this, I did it. Not to say, don't take a negative tone of it, but essentially saying, hey, you elected me to do this, I've done it, vote for me again. They're going to.
But the thing with the fake news is they're not reporting that's been happening.
Of course not.
You know, maybe people in, Michigan, Wisconsin, what if they don't know that Trump is making the gains that he has in their communities?
And again, if you're someone who lives in a town in, if you're someone who lives in a town in Michigan, who got hit really hard during the financial crisis, jobs are gone, and the economy really hadn't improved for you, and all of a sudden it is, jobs are coming back. You're saying, Trump's part of the reason behind why this is happening. I gave him a chance. It's worked out. You're going to do it. If you're some liberal going to college in California, you're not seeing any of that.
No.
Obviously you're going to see things differently. And you're going to wonder, why are these people voting for this racist, sexist, ableist, buzzword, homophobic, Islamophobic person?
And they see that because the media focuses on, oh, he's a xenophobic, racist, hates LGBTs, instead of, oh, the economic potential of this country is actually being fulfilled. It's insane.
Yeah, so, everyone lives in a bubble, both people on the right and people on the left. But bubbles aren't exactly it's not a nationwide bubble. It's your own spots.
But I think your story points out the fact that even people who are young and involved in social media or even in their particular activist community, like the LGBTQ community, that girl, I mean, she's obviously, how long have we been past the RNC and she didn't even know there was such a statement?
Yeah, and that was the day after the election, and the RNC was like the last week of July, I think, so that's last week of August, September, October, about 3.5 months.
The media is taking advantage of the millennials, is what I mean, is what I'm getting at. As far as, because being a college student, you're almost less informed, because even if you're liberal and out of college, at least you have the economy affects you in a real way, because you're on your own. You know what I mean? So, Enzo's right. I mean, maybe these liberals are not getting the news about these policies, but they're going to feel the effects.
Yeah.
They're going to feel the effects.
Hopefully they can recognize the effects. That's what I am saying.
Yeah.
If the media is not being honest about what good things Donald Trump is doing in the country, it does make me a little fearful about what kind of smear campaigns will come once 2019 starts up again.
Yeah, and just imagine,
Oh, they're going to come.
I was going to say, just imagine that a manufacturing plant was built in San Marcos. A majority of us college kids, we would never get a job there.
No.
Because that's not the type of job that we would be going for. They're hiring people that aren't college students. We would never see the gain of that.
Yeah.
So if the city gained from it, if the city started seeing more money pumping in, college students won't see the positive effects of that. If you're someone who lives here, you're going to see the positive and potentially negative effects of that, right?
Yeah.
So, even if you're a Democrat, and let's say it was all Republicans who did that, if all of a sudden you're starting to see improvement, you're going to say, okay, this was the Republicans who did this. They were right on this one.
Yeah.
But if you're a college student, and let's say some illegal immigrant that lives down the street from you, let's say their house gets raided and they get deported, are you going to focus on that, or are you going to focus on the jobs? But if you live at the other side of town, you're going to see the jobs. You're not going to see the illegal immigrant at all.
Yeah.
It goes into selection bias a lot. But still, you're absolutely right. If you're someone who's like a college kid, you're not going to see the full picture.
No.
Whereas someone who's in the real world would.
Chris, we haven't really heard much from you. What is your opinion on 90 or 89% of mainstream media coverage of Trump is negative?
Yeah, honestly, they are playing a scorched earth strategy, but it's only affecting themselves. They are having high rates of attrition. There's leftists who cannot survive this constant negative doom and gloom campaign. The hashtag not my president is going to go to bust. I remember the day after election, I still read the Washington Post. Then I realized they changed their banner. There was this all-black banner with a small, in white italics, "Democracy dies in darkness." Immediately, the letters to the editor flooded in to where there were longtime liberal readers who said, "I understand the message, but this is too negative, 24/7. This is their new motto, their new slogan on the front page, "Democracy dying."
Yeah. And, I've mentioned this before, just if you're a liberal that is watching the news like it, and a lot of these people have become kind of masochistically addicted to watching the news, and depressing themselves with this negative coverage.
I go as far to say as they're gaslighting themselves.
Yeah,
to believe
like
that everything is a Trump, Putin, WikiLeaks conspiracy.
you know, it makes the world seem like it's falling apart when it's not. And I'm just concerned about what this is going to do to the mental psyche of these people. I don't want them to be so disturbed from this, you know, fake news reporting that once the 2020 rallies start coming, they're, you know, out there punching Trump supporters. Because, I mean, that precedent was already set with the last election.
I think that's exactly what's going to happen. Actually, now that you mention it, because these people are being broken little by little with these false narratives. I mean, MSNBC is the worst, but again, of course, obviously they say we're democratic, but it's still false narratives. And when these fights break out, whether it's at a Trump rally or come this summer, at as far as like protesting, it's civil war. We really are divided, but it's not. How did we come back together after the Civil War here in America? We looked at it. We thought critically about what was actually happening. You know what I mean? There was peace. There's no critical thinking with Trump. Everything he does, even if it's a good thing, it's bad.
Yeah. Talking a little bit about elections, though, and talking about 2020, Elizabeth Warren has said that she will not be running in 2020, which is one of the leading candidates potentially to run for the Democrats, which, you know, makes it... I don't know who... I've always been saying Cory Booker's probably the one that will get the 2020 nomination, but, like, I'm starting to believe that might not be the case. I mean, he's been falling to the background. I don't know who the Democrats would run in 2020.
I think Oprah would be good.
Oprah?
Yeah. I really
Is
do.
Oprah a Democrat? I don't know
Yeah,
if
she is.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah,
Oh.
and I mean, because Trump was doing exploratory committees since like 2001. Oprah said she's never going to do it. She hadn't never done one, but now she is. So, because she said she never thought she had the experience, but with Trump in office, she does. So right now, yeah, she's playing it cool, lying real low because she's not out there. But I'm telling you, as we get closer, she's got people looking into it, and the only thing that could compete with him is her, honestly.
Oprah Trump 2020.
I'm just saying.
The battle of the TV shows.
Pretty much.
Not to mention Kanye West said he wanted to run in 2020.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
but he also said that he was going to wait till 2024.
He's got to prep.
After Trump won, he said, "I'm waiting until 2024."
Oh yeah, remember he went to Trump Tower like immediately after Trump won.
Yeah.
Yeah.
he must have been afraid of Kanye. He's like, look, I'll bring you in on this thing, but you gotta wait.
Yeah.
Kris, what's your opinion? Who do you think will be the 2020
I'm still
nominee?
betting my privilege/oppression points on Kamala Harris. I know I've been tinfoil, just paranoid about her ever since her too easy win in the California Democratic primaries. And she is educated, she's white, she doesn't have the Clinton baggage, she doesn't have the Elizabeth Warren baggage. Elizabeth Warren fell apart when she endorsed Hillary Clinton and was called a traitor by the progressive base. She doesn't have the trust of the moderate leftist Democrats, the centrists, nor the enthusiastic support of the far left progressives.
And Kamala Harris is younger than a lot of these people that, like, Elizabeth Warren's in her 70s, I believe.
Elizabeth Warren is an old white person. The Democratic Party...
She's an old Indian person.
Yeah, that's true. She's Pocahontas. But, you know, the Democratic Party, they don't... Part of me thinks that they don't want to run an old white person. They want to run someone like Obama, a young black person. So that's why I'm still kind of leaning towards Cory Booker myself. But, you know...
What about, okay, I'm going to put this out there. Bernie 2020. Come on. We still feel the burn. Come
Here's how we
on.
can
Still
still win.
believing. College should still be free.
Nothing would surprise me, although I still think there's enough people in the Democratic establishment that don't want that to happen.
Bernie, I think he'd be like 75. He can do it.
Isn't he already 75? He'd be like 80-something.
I think he's done. But like you said, the party's always looking for somebody to take the mantle. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm
I
just
think
joking
he's-
around with Bernie, but... Although I've been seeing, like, progressives are kind of getting fed up with Bernie some.
Well, he came out and he said that he thought that Ann Coulter should be allowed to speak at UC Berkeley without facing any, like, violent backlash. And a lot of progressives were, like, against him saying that. They're like, no, we should be able to smash bash and punch the Nazis.
See, I don't understand what the left is at the moment. I mean, I know people who aren't radical progressives that just are Democrats, and I don't hate on them for that. But they're still in the same like party lumped in together as these radicals, and these radicals do have a voice that matters and like does influence this party. And you know the Democratic Party is massively corrupt, and there is the huge divide between the progressive camp and business as usual establishment. I don't know if in 2020 we'll see another populist uprising in the left. I'd imagine so. But, I mean, they're not winning any credibility with what they're doing now, so I just don't know what's happening.
Yeah, a little bit take it back to the topic of Democrats and election prospects. There's an article came out a few days ago in Politico that's titled, Democrats Begin to Wonder, When Do We Win? This is for their lackluster results in Georgia and Kansas elections.
Yeah, which, Bobby, you wanted to get into that Georgia election because it's pretty important. Is that up next on our thing? Yeah, that's up next. So, so what happened is there was a runoff election in Georgia because the guy who was originally the Republican who was in office, he became Trump's, what was it?
This was Congress.
Yeah. And he became, God, what did he become? I should know this.
He's in the cabinet, right?
Yeah, he's in Trump's cabinet now. Anyways, so he's in Trump's cabinet now, so obviously they had to call a special election to fill a seat. And the Democrats wanted to prove a point by trying to get a Democrat elected in a historically and strong Republican district.
Yeah.
But the way that Georgia elections go, and is just like the French election right now. If no candidate reaches 50%, then the top two will face in a runoff election. So what the Democrats wanted to do is they got this guy John Ossoff, and they wanted him to run.
They cash dumped on him.
Yeah, right. Republicans ran 11 candidates at the same time against one Democrat.
With massive funding.
Right. And he had massive funding, especially from out of state.
Samuel L. Jackson actually did a robocall for him.
Oh, I bet he did. But,
wow.
Either way, so a lot of Democrats thought, okay, we're going to prove a point that Americans don't like Trump, and so we're going to get this Democrat elected in a Republican district. But what ended up happening was the guy got right around 48% of the vote. But say, okay, well, he got the most votes because the Republican who came in second got like 22%. So if you went by just...
But it's split between 11.
Right. So if you're one of those people that says, oh, the popular vote should always win, 48 to 22 is a big margin of victory. But if you look at parties, the Democrat Party got 48% of the vote. The Republican Party got 52% of the vote.
So if they just had one candidate, they would have won.
Right. And that's the thing is, in this election that's coming up, I think it's now for June 20th is when they've scheduled it. So the Republican chick who got the second most votes was Karen Handel, and so she's expected to easily win. And I think you had something, Sam?
Oh, I was just looking at that Georgia radio ad. I took a picture of it. See what I'm saying?
Do you wanna read out that robocall?
I'll read it. I'm not going to try to do Samuel Jackson's voice, but he said, "Stop Donald Trump, the man who encourages racial and religious discrimination and sexism. Remember what happened the last time people stayed at home. We got stuck with Trump."
Do you remember what happened the last time they used this rhetoric? Do you remember what happened the last time they had a lot of money? Do you remember the last time what happened when they had celebrities coming out and trying to tell us average people what to believe in?
Yeah, it's almost as if the political acumen of Jay-Z and Beyonce last election, Madonna, and Samuel L. Jackson in the current year amount to nothing to the average American person on Main Street, not in Hollywood.
I mean, my thing, like, I hate Hollywood. I don't watch movies. But, you have all these Hollywood actors always telling us, like, what to believe. But the thing is, like, they're not famous for talking the things that come out of their head. They're famous for saying the things that other people, came out of their heads.
Yeah, and you guys know Chris Pratt, right?
Yeah.
He recently made a statement saying Hollywood is not in line with regular everyday Americans. They forced him to apologize for saying that.
I'm sick of it. They should just not express their political opinions so much. And, I would have a favorable view of Hollywood in that sense. But I don't want to watch lunatics on the TV screen.
I mean, I'm a fan of Samuel L. Jackson's movies. I think he's a great actor. I completely disagree with his policies, though, or politics.
Yeah. I don't support them any financially, but that's just me. Do you want to talk about this Representative Chaffetz that happened?
So this guy right here, Representative Chaffetz, he's kind of he's a never-Trumper, and he was in he's a Republican from Utah, and
He's in the Senate, isn't he?
Yeah, no, he's in the
Congress.
he's in Congress in the House of Representatives, but one of the Utah Republican seats is up for re-election, and the Utah governorship is also up for re-election, but not until 2018. So a lot of people thought that this guy, as a never Trumper, would jump on board with Egg McMuffin's popularity in Utah.
Evan McMullen. If you don't know who Evan McMuffin is.
And he also owes over $700 million in debt.
Oh yeah, Evan McMuffin. If you don't know, he was the big never Trumper independent candidate. I think he was with the Constitutionalist Party in the election, and they dropped a lot of money on him, and he got like a significant amount of votes from like
of the vote.
Utah. He got like 20%.
He's the reason that we only won Utah by like 8 points, as
He's a
opposed to
Mormon.
like 20, which we normally do. Those people otherwise normally would have voted for Trump, but he jumped on board with the whole "I'm Mormon, vote for me because you're Mormon too."
I believe Utah went to Ted Cruz. A lot of these mountain states that are traditionally Republican didn't go to Trump, so it's kind of risky us not even winning out there with the sentiment that just Republicans against Trump. But
Chris, you have something?
I wanted to make a correction. Evan McMullen, he wasn't a constitutionalist candidate. That belonged to somebody else. He was an independent candidate out of Utah.
Right.
he just didn't have a party affiliation.
No party, no plan.
Right.
I
And
believe
CIA.
he's Bill Kristol's buddy.
yeah. And the only reason Evan McMullen even existed in this race was to steal votes from Donald Trump.
Oh
That's
yeah,
a
they
fact.
explicitly came out and said, "I hope the debt from was worth it to get 20% of the Utah vote."
Yeah, and if a lot of people think, oh, that means Utah's becoming a blue state because it went from a 20% Republican win to an 8% Republican win.
That's not the case.
No, 2020 we're going to win it by like 15 to 16. So.
Yeah, so
If
not
any-
too worried.
Yeah, so I'm not worried at all. But that being said, the whole point of this article is one of the biggest never-Trumper Republicans that's in Congress said he is not going to run for re-election in 2018.
So it's good we're getting someone that opposes
Right,
Trump.
but there's speculation that he might run for Utah governor in 2020, which, that's not
We
a good
don't
thing
want.
for Trump. But as of right now, that means, that's good news for now. So he's not going to be running for re-election.
Yeah. Do you
But
want to?
that also means we need to make sure that we win that seat.
Yeah. Do you want to touch quickly on this North Carolina thing that we have up here?
Yeah, so 500 ineligible votes were found cast in North Carolina after an audit. That wasn't enough to make any decisions differently in any of the races that those votes were cast in, but it just goes to prove to you that voter fraud is out there. And I know Trump said there were 3 million illegal votes, which we have reason to both believe that and deny that. But, for the people out there that say, oh, it doesn't exist, we got 500 votes. That's not an incident.
I mean, there's in our town of San Marcos, like we have voting problems where something like 1,200 votes weren't counted in the 2016 election of like a town of what 35,000.
Yeah.
Is that the final count on that? Because I heard it might have been more even.
I mean, we're the fastest growing city in the United States. We grow 20% every single year, which is insane. That's why traffic's so bad right now. But there's a lot of voter fraud that happens in these elections, and I am thankful that it didn't go against us. But yeah, I just wanted to quickly touch up on that.
Yeah, if we ever get the chance to, I'd like to highlight my plan to decrease voter fraud. I remember speaking with someone after the election, but if we ever get a long period to talk about it, I'll talk about that
I
period.
think maybe we could make what I was talking about, some of those bonus episodes
Yeah,
or
'cause
segments.
you wanted to introduce your healthcare plan, right?
Yeah, so just a quick thing to say with the show, we're looking to start doing some recordings midweek, mainly just me and Bobby talking about specific topics instead of doing complete rundowns. I think maybe we might start it this next week. I don't know. It just depends on what we want to talk about. But let's get into a new segment that we have. Well, we just have a name for it. We've been doing stories like this before. But it's current year college craziness. So the point of this segment is to go over just the craziness that happens in all these liberal colleges. Since we're college-age guys, me, you, Kris, even though me and Bob are the only one in college at the moment. But we do have a lot of experience with the insanity that happens on college campuses, which most people aren't aware of, so we just want to make people more aware of all of these crazy things that happen every single week in college campuses. So let's get into the first one that we wanted to talk about, which is Ann Coulter's speech being canceled at Berkeley and the situation that's happening there. Bobby, do you want to say something about that?
Yeah, so Ann Coulter is not exactly the most liberal person on the planet.
No.
But after the whole Berkeley incidents with the first, second, and third battle at Berkeley's, Milo trying to speak there, and then all the stuff that happened recently. So she wanted to go there and give a speech. But what originally happened was the university they accepted it, and then they turned around and said, no, we're canceling it. But she said...
For security concerns.
Yeah, for security concerns, because people were like calling in bomb threats and stuff. And she was like, no, I'm going to fight this. And then they came out and they turned around and said, okay, fine, we'll let you speak, but only under specific rules and regular rules. Like, it had to be like a week later.
Yeah, they're moving it back.
Which, when they say having it be a week later, you got to remember, their last week of classes is like the week before that.
So this would be like this would be the studying time before finals. So no one's going to be
after finals.
After finals.
Yeah, no one would be there.
No one would be
there.
It
would be like giving a speech in the middle of the summer at a school. So, and they said it had to be like at a different auditorium. And
only students?
Yeah, and only students could show up. There couldn't be anyone from the outside. So she was like, you know what, that's absolutely insane and crazy. So she's saying, I'm going to show up anyways.
These are not restrictions that people put on other speakers.
Right. And they never do this for left-wing speakers.
At all.
So she's vowing to go on the original date and give the speech anyways. And we're expecting there to be the fourth Battle of Berkeley now. But we'll see what happens.
I think there's definitely a huge possibility of violence again.
I mean, that's the entire reason they wanted to shut down her speech, was because there's going to be violence. So there's going to be violence. And hopefully...
I hope there is violence, honestly, not because I think that she is provocateur in any way, but I think I think the country needs to really absorb a lesson in free speech that we're not, because anti-free speech is winning in the political, in the public court of public opinion. Not a lot, but among millennials definitely, because I have friends at work who are millennial. They go to college. They don't necessarily go out and protest or whatever, but they think that these riots are okay. They're justified. And I don't get that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there are people out there that are being indoctrinated with that kind of philosophy, that it's okay because hate speech is not free speech. But the Supreme Court already ruled hate speech, whether I like it or not, is covered under the First Amendment.
Yeah, and as we were saying before, hate speech is a vague thing to say. It doesn't have a definition.
Ruled, though. They ruled.
What was one of the guys that ran for president back in 2004 as a Democrat? God, I should have forgotten.
John Edwards?
No, not John Edwards. It was one of the other guys. But he tweeted out today, not today, but earlier this week, saying, he said, hate speech is not protected by the First Amendment. Yeah. He got so much backlash from that even Bill Maher, on Bill Maher's program, said, yeah, this guy's a freaking idiot. As much as I hate to say it, hate speech is protected by the First Amendment. That was Bill Maher saying that.
That was Howard Dean.
Howard Dean, that's correct.
And Bill Maher, he's quoted as saying, Berkeley, you used to be the cradle of free speech, and now it's just the cradle for fucking babies.
Yeah.
So here's my thing with this situation. They're canceling it because of the threat of violence. They need to set a message to these students sending these threats that you don't get to shut things down just because you're making terroristic threats. This is not acceptable. This is not something that we're going to have in the future. I am so sick of so many college administrations just letting this pass by. Even at Texas State, I deal with the garbage that these administrations do. And I don't think Berkeley is going to do anything about it. Bringing this back to the Battle of Berkeley last week and just the environment of Berkeley, it's completely run by Antifa, radical leftist terrorists, completely. If you look at the videos, there's this Antifa graffiti everywhere, anarchist symbols anywhere. And this is the environment of Berkeley. And this is why Ann Coulter is going there, because guess what? this is not American, this is not acceptable, and it's going to end. And we're going to make a statement now that free speech is here to stay, because if we don't fight it now, it's not going to be there for our kids.
Right.
Yeah, and also, I think we wanted to talk about the last Battle of Berkeley, especially with Padlock Guy, right?
With what? Oh, Padlock Guy, yeah.
Yeah,
Let's talk
so
about that.
there was a very famous video that came out during the third Battle of Berkeley. There was a Trump supporter who was talking to some people, and I think he was like kneeling on the ground or whatever. And this Antifa guy just literally walks up and takes a bike lock that's attached to the end of a towel and just whips him, and it smacks him right in the forehead with it. The guy had to go and get like multiple stitches. Like, that is attempted murder.
Yeah, that could easily kill someone.
That is assault with a deadly weapon. That could easily kill someone. Had it hit like 2 inches lower, that would have hit his eye. You know, the guy could have lost an eye. And so what Poll did, what 4chan and the internet tried to do, and, you know, I applaud the fact that they did it, they went through hours and hours of videos, pictures, trying to identify the guy. They were able to identify the guy based on his eyebrows, his eyes, his facial structure. And it turns out the guy is a professor at University of California, San Francisco, or one of the schools around
UC Berkeley.
Not surprising.
I don't think it was UC Berkeley, but it was one of the schools.
I believe
around
he
there.
was a teacher at Berkeley.
Was he? Because I thought it was UC.
All these people are part of the same group, By Any Means Necessary, which is run by Yvette Filarka. She's been on Tucker Carlson before, saying that they will just openly, physically stop anyone from speaking anything they don't like.
But what I was going to continue to say is, so we've outed this guy. We've got his name, we've got his personal information, we've got his employment history, we've got his home address. You know, people started showing videos that people took during his lectures. The guy literally has like a super low, like high-pitched voice, talks quietly, stutters, mumbles, like makes you wonder how this guy's even a professor. But that being said, what they did is they rated his Rate My Professor website page. Like, the guy originally had like a 4.8 out of 5 stars, and everyone started making negative reviews of the guy. It got down to 1.2 before Rate My Professor took it down. Like, he's not even on there anymore.
He should get a 1.2 if he's going to physically assault people in the street. You shouldn't get to teach people if the example that you set for how people should conduct themselves in political expression is violence. No, I don't think that you should be a teacher.
And not only that, but the last thing I want to say is, so Poll tried to troll him, and what they decided to do was they hacked into his Amazon account, and they sent him 14 bike locks with 1-day shipping, along with a copy of some like right-wing book.
So that probably cost him a lot of money.
Yes, just to clarify, the man we're talking about is Eric Clanton. He is professor for Diablo Valley College.
Diablo Valley,
so nearby,
Thank
not
you.
Berkeley.
So yeah, that's nearby.
One thing I did want to talk about, talking about Berkeley a little bit, was it recently was discovered that the mayor of Berkeley itself, it was actually in the same Facebook group as By Any Means Necessary, the radical leftist Antifa group, which pretty much means that he's in the same sphere as these people doing these attacks and, causing these riots. And if you look at what happened at Berkeley, the police were completely standing down. When we played last week, when the guy got asked, like, where are you guys? They said, you better ask our supervisor or whatever. They wouldn't get involved. And he said, like, there's people being attacked. And the officer just says, so what? They were told by this mayor to stand down. What other explanation could it be? This is the level of insanity that's going on in California, and this is the level of insanity that's being bred in UC Berkeley,
You wonder why Hillary won the state by 4 million votes.
Yeah, these current year college crazies, as I'd like to say. But let's get into some other college crazy stories. So, do you want to talk about this guy that's allowing his students to take off for their final?
I think you were the one who added that article.
Oh, I was?
I haven't read it yet.
So, here, let me pull it up quickly here.
So, yeah, this is an article from The Blaze. And it says that a professor at Arizona State University gave her Global Politics of Human Rights class a choice for the end of the semester. Take a final exam or undertake a group project. Well, obviously, they selected the group project. So what's the project? A protest against the policies of Republican President Donald Trump.
What's the academic merit of protesting?
So,
What I've seen is it only makes people dumber. These kind of leftist protests.
so they got 20 students, and they all stood in a line holding a sign that said "Wall Against Hate." Like,
Yeah, there's a picture of it on the article, and everyone's just holding a letter. There's about 20 or so of them. In the middle, it's got like a heart with rainbow colors. But what do they think they've achieved with this?
well, I'll tell you
protest?
something they achieved. They got in trouble because the college told them to gather elsewhere so they weren't blocking sidewalk traffic. And, eventually campus police got called, and the protesters had to drop their signs and link arms. And then apparently, some pedestrians tried to physically run through them in order to break through.
Like Red Rover.
Yeah, like Red Rover. And eventually the police told them, you have to do this or we're going to arrest you. And at that point, they did give them room to walk. But the ASU administration, they released a statement about, what it means to protest and block traffic and stuff like this. And, when it comes to blocking traffic, even, actual traffic on highways, I've said before, I'm in favor with the nationwide run-them-over law. If anyone ever...
The accidental law they have in Kentucky.
Yeah. So, if you ever get the chance to... if someone's blocking traffic on a highway, and granted, this was in the middle of a college campus, we're not talking about roads, we're talking about foot traffic, but that's still, sidewalks exist for a reason.
Yeah.
But just, not to go off on too much of a tangent, but if someone's blocking a highway and not allowing actual traffic to go through...
That's a felony.
Yeah, not only is that a felony, but if I was to accidentally push on the gas pedal in order to get through, that really shouldn't be a crime on my part.
These kids are romanticizing, the Tiananmen Square guy with the grocery bag, trying to act like standing in front of an ambulance trying to get to the hospital is the same thing. It's ridiculous.
All you're doing is pissing off people that just want to live their daily lives. How is that going to bring positive attention to whatever issue you're trying to protest?
But I mean, to bring this back a second, this all comes back to the professor, allowing these students not to take a final, which, in education, I'm a teacher, pedagogy, you're supposed to have a summative assessment of what students learned so you could figure out what they learned. What are the students, how do they show you that they've learned from your class if your final assignment is go outside and yell?
Hold up a sign.
But Chris, you had something?
This is to go on to as what you were talking about, the lunacy of the professors emanating to the students. It was last month. There were professors and students who protested Charles Murray, a libertarian author, because he was giving a speech on campus, and it escalated to where both he and there's a publicly liberal professor who says, "Oh hey, Charles Murray is a friend of mine. I'm gonna have him on campus, and we will help ask questions." She believes in presenting a different opinion. She got assaulted just as much as he did. There were students who were pulling their hair, and when they thought they were safe, they were on. It was after the talk. They were having dinner, and that's when their friend came up and said, "We have to leave." They found out where the restaurant is, and the signatories of the letter included professors of the university. When asked, admitted they have not read a single word from Charles Murray book. Instead, they latched onto this huge hysteria.
They just labeled him a white supremacist. That's what they did.
Yeah. I don't want to go back to the whole Berkeley professor thing, but there's an unconfirmed report that he has been arrested. No one has confirmed that. That's been unconfirmed for 3 days now. So I hope it's true, but I'm just pointing it out that, it looks like something may or may not actually being done about this. So we can go back to what we're saying now.
Yeah, they should definitely do something about it.
I mean, like I said, that guy committed he committed not only assault with a deadly weapon, but
it's attempted murder.
Attempted murder right there. That's not something that you can just let it slide.
So the next thing I wanted to get into as far as current year college craziness was the University of Alaska is displaying a painting of a decapitated Trump in its gallery. This is an article from the Blaze that came out on Thursday. I just want to read some of it to tell the story. Okay. The University of Alaska at Anchorage is displaying a painting of a nude Chris Evans, the actor who stars as Marvel's Captain America, holding aloft the severed head of President Donald Trump as a young 60s-era Hillary Clinton clings to his leg. Assistant Professor Thomas Chung created the painting, KTTU-TV reported, and he says that he spent days just weeping after Trump was elected president. The assistant professor describes himself as a social artist who normally doesn't deal in politics, but Trump's election bled into that. Originally, he was hesitant to submit the painting for a faculty art show, fearing that it would disturb some students. He decided to push forward regardless, hoping it would generate conversation. Quote, I was really torn about putting this piece up at a faculty show because I would never talk about my own political beliefs to my students. I would never push that upon them and make them feel uncomfortable. And so I wondered to myself if putting up this painting was in a way doing that. But I realized that I feel very strongly about this, and I think even students that might be pro-Trump supporters could benefit from having a conversation with me about why I feel this way, why I painted this. Former UAA professor Paul R. Berger, who identifies himself as a conservative, took to Facebook and wrote how he wasn't sure how I want to respond to this. Yeah, I don't want to get into the rest of the article. But it has at the top the photo of it, if y'all see that. The guy has eagles on his shoulder, and he's pulling Trump by his weird hair, and he's just decapitated and blood's pouring out, and...
It's disgusting, man.
Yeah, it's stupid, it's disgusting, it's disgraceful. Why would someone that's a professional think that it's okay to put a painting of the president with his head cut off?
And that's the question, actually, that needs an answer. Because this is happening not just isolated in incidences. This is happening across the country, at universities across the country. What if a white professor had said, oh, you know, I painted Barack Obama hanging from a tree. I just want people to talk with me about how this feels. I don't think you'd get a response the way you're getting it with this.
No, that'd be called racist if you depicted President Obama in the same exact way as you do it in this photo. It would be widely condemned as racist. Yeah. But this is socially acceptable because this is Donald Trump. And guess what? You know, I realize that this is like a bad thing to do, but like I cried a lot after the election. I want to tell people why I painted it, because I cried a lot. Like, grow up, you loser.
Yeah, he should not be a professor, that's for sure. Now, as an artist, whatever, I'm for free art. You can paint Donald Trump being chopped off in any way you want.
I don't think that this should be put in a faculty art gallery of all things. The college should be coming out and saying, no, we are against this.
For sure.
Stupid stuff.
Yeah. What I want to add to this is, honestly, I'm not at... Donald Trump's severed head is actually not the most disturbing thing to me about this piece. What's most disturbing is the thing that's clinging onto Chris Evans' leg, Hillary Clinton. It's Camille Paglia. I can't pronounce her last name. P-A-G.
Paglia. You said it right.
Paglia. Camille Paglia. She is one of my favorite feminists. She's just a little bit into her. She's a second wave feminist. She's a dissident critic of third wave feminism, and she's actually the only person who makes Salon worth reading. Salon is garbage without her. But she has an article on Salon, this liberal rag, that berates liberals on their obsession with Queen Hillary. She says, your obsession with this mad queen, crowning this woman, and she goes on to say that this is a delusion. You're gaslighting yourself. That there is no redeeming quality to Hillary Clinton other than her vagina. And this art piece, it ties into this my feelings are valid, I want a conversation, this virtue signaling nonsense. It is all, as you were saying earlier, Enzo, that this is not good for the mental health. This entire gaslighting of the liberal media, of telling them doom and gloom news that Trump is Nazi. That's why they have Chris Evans there, because Chris Evans played Captain America, and they purport Trump to be literally Hitler.
Yeah. I was thinking to myself why they picked Chris Evans, because like I don't really know anything about superheroes, but I know he's like a big deal in like movies and stuff. But I guess you pointed out like Trump's literally Hitler, so you got to decapitate him apparently.
Yeah, did anyone? I'm sorry, I wasn't really paying attention. Did anyone mention about the actual Captain America first issue comic?
No, I don't know.
If you look at the cover art for the very first issue of Captain America the comics, it was Captain America punching Hitler in the face.
Mm.
So I'm guessing that's kind of what they probably modeled it after.
But so just to close out this, the painting was not removed from the gallery. It just stayed in the gallery. It closed on Thursday. They didn't do anything about this. Fun stuff. So, the next article I wanted to go into was a college recently voted to give black students free tuition college for doing, the honorable thing of being born black. So this is Western Kentucky University. The Student Government Association is the one that passed it, giving tuitions. They say it was for reparations. And this resolution passed 19-10 with one person declining the vote. So the student body is widely behind this. The article also goes in to say that the University of Wisconsin-Madison also did a very similar thing, which I have friends that go to that university. But I want to just read some crazy quotes from it. Quote, student success is an important ongoing discussion at Western Kentucky University, and the recruitment, persistence, and success of underrepresented minority students is a daily focus across this institution, Ranzel wrote. Gary Ranzel is the president of Western Kentucky University. Quote, we appreciate the Student Government Association's interest in these issues, but it is important to clarify that their resolution is not an official position taken by the university. I have read the SGA's resolution, and I understand that their intent was to spark a conversation, but the university will not adopt any such policies. I spent much of the last year engaging in dialogue with black student leaders on campus, which have led to a greater understanding and appreciation of their experiences and priorities. Our goal is to ensure that Western Kentucky University is both a welcoming place and a place that focuses on persistence and success.
So at least it looks like it's not actually going to happen.
Yeah, but it still is a good example of just how crazy radical these colleges have gotten to the point to where they believe it is the duty of these colleges to give free college tuition to people to make up for slavery happening 200 years ago. They need to make up to these people that were never slaves.
That's what I'm talking about, how people in colleges in this generation are almost more uninformed. Because these are going to be the faculty staff of the future, man. You know what I'm saying? These students, they're already involved in this, in the political realm with the campus. Yeah, it didn't go through now, but 5 years from now, who knows?
And like I said, this isn't the only place where they've tried to do the same thing. They've also tried to do this at UW-Madison, which I remember a couple years ago they passed this thing where they actually have, I believe it's feminist biology. It's biology that has the perspective of women. It recognizes that women have been subjugated to a lesser role in biology. So it's a focus in a degree course on that. But yeah, there's just a lot of lunacy going on, and this, as I said, passed 19-10. So this is the mindset that is supposed to be our future, a very bleak one, if you ask me. Kris, do you have any thoughts on giving black people free tuition?
Yeah, my entire deal with this is honestly just bury the hatchet. I had a friend who served with me in the Marines, and he left his reservation, even though the government was basically paying reparations to the reservation for, this is how we treat you, but it turned out to be, the helping hand turned out to be put down.
He's Native American.
Yes, he is of the Navajo tribe. But to go on to my background, I'm Filipino. The Philippines, we can claim oppression from the United States during the aftermath of the Philippine-American War to when the Americans turned tables on us, and our fight for freedom became a fight to colonize the Philippines. But if you go around the Philippines, Filipinos, we didn't forget the American imperialism history. We acknowledge it happened. We just say, well, no one alive today is responsible for it, so we're not going to blame America. I'm not going to blame Americans today for what their forefathers did, as not to get too biblical, the sins of the father belong to the father, not to the son. So I'm thinking if we can get over this, granted there is other issues like dysphoria in the black community in the United States, it's just to acknowledge the fact that, granted, let's pretend there's justice done to you, but it was done to you by someone who's no longer alive. So why make their descendants pay for that crime?
Agreed.
Yeah, this is just generational guilt. I mean, how many generations has gone by since the end of slavery? Over 10 at this point. But apparently, we need to discriminate against certain people in favor of others because crimes that happened 10 generations ago, apparently that's justice in any sort of sense. It's crazy. I don't know how to explain it otherwise. But let's get into the next crazy college story. So this happened at Indiana State University. A professor was caught fabricating anti-Muslim hate crimes. This came out yesterday, actually. A Muslim professor at Indiana State University lied about receiving threatening emails and being attacked on campus, police say. Azhar Hussain, 56, assistant professor of aviation technology, was arrested on Friday and charged with the felony charge of obstruction of justice and misdemeanor harassment, according to Terre Haute Tribune Star. On March 8th, Hussain claimed to receive threatening emails containing anti-Muslim sentiments. And on March 24, Hussain claimed that he was attacked from behind while entering his campus office. But the professor fabricated all of the incidents, police say. Quote, based on the investigation, it is our belief that Hussain was trying to gain sympathy for becoming a victim of anti-Muslim threats, which he created himself, Indiana State University Police Officer Chief Joseph Newport said Friday. It is extremely unfortunate that this situation caused undue concern on any other members of the ISU community. Investors tracked the emails sent to Hussain and determined that the professor sent them. Hussain was held on a $10,000 bond and has been suspended from his teaching position. So, any initial thoughts just on hearing that story?
Well, it's another hoax crime that's occurred.
Another one. Another Muslim one.
How many of these events actually ended up being real hate crimes, if we can use that word?
Seems like almost never.
And it seems like almost all of them, if not all of them, are hoaxes. So,
the only thing I've ever seen is a YouTube video caught by maybe somebody making like a remark.
Yeah, it's not like
you this, you that, or something.
But let's look at a bunch of them that we've seen. We've seen that Israeli kid that was sending all the death threats to the Jewish community centers.
We saw that Muslim girl who said that her hijab was pulled off in the New York City subway.
We also had that Jewish guy that drew a swastika in his house recently.
We have that black man who burned down his church and then drew a swastika and said something like
"Vote Trump."
Vote Trump.
We have
a gay couple that set their own house on fire, I think.
I think there's also a gay couple who was caught spray painting anti-gay slurs in their house as well.
There was also
the bad ones.
There was a black man who's trying to frame his white girlfriend of those Jewish death threat crimes, trying to connect her with it. And also in that situation, it's funny, he actually did one threat in his own name and trying to claim that his girlfriend was framing him for the crime that he was committing on her. Didn't we report on some of these last week as well?
If not last week, a couple of weeks ago. We have reported on these, though.
Yeah, but it just brings it back. We live in this we of where the victim receives undue sympathy. Even if they can't prove that these threats are real, we just have to believe them because they're minorities. But it's gotten to the point to where they're constantly doing this to gain sympathy because they know the media's on their side, the public support's on their side. They're building all these hate crimes which don't exist. And you know what? All these hate crimes are still being blamed on Donald Trump, even though we've been finding case after case after case. They're not real. And I'm just tired of it at this point. Do y'all have any other thoughts on it?
I'm glad that the professor was suspended because that's what we need to start doing.
Yeah.
We really need to start making sure these people don't continue with what they're doing. And I would also like to say, what are your all's thoughts on what would happen if they passed a law saying that if you're caught fabricating a hate crime, or, like I said, I know we don't like the word hate crime, but if you're caught fabricating a hoax, should you get the punishment that the person who did it would have been if it was real?
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Oh yeah, same here. I even extend this to we have this new hysteria of hate crime hoaxes when just to replace. So I guess the rape hoaxes are going out of vogue.
Yeah, because you remember with UAV, that was the big one that got exposed as a rape hoax. I believe that just the precedent of how flagrant it was and how the media was punished for even, putting his name out there and insinuating that he did it. They lost millions of dollars. I think the media recognized that they can't go around just putting out these accusations for rape. But now they've just moved on to hate crimes, and you don't see retractions on these things either from the media either. So, what can you do?
Oh yeah, there is another college craziness in the current year. I'm just gonna go a little bit. This was posted in. There's an article written in Inside Higher Ed by a feminist professor who went into detail about how she felt so triggered by an essay that a male student wrote in her class. It was on the debate of rape culture, and this male student, surprisingly enough, was a dissident. He had a dissenting opinion in class, but as she was grading the paper, she actually was quoted. Let me pull this up. You can find this article in Heat Street. She recounts screaming, "Zero, you get an effing zero," at the computer screen as she graded the student's 2-page paper, saying that she also felt simply by writing the paper, he had undermined her authority as an instructor. And even though she says that, I know the student wasn't my rapist, but she says the more I read this paper, the more he sounded like my rapist, and went on to say that she imagined that she and her rapist, because her rapist was a young college white male, ages in the college age range, so she imagined them to be buddies with each other, and she's just, again, I know I'm broken record right now for saying gaslighting herself, but when you believe the world is oppression, you will see nothing but oppression. Even from as something as innocuous as a dissenting opinion, it's seen as, oh no, he's triggering me by making me relive my rape memories. Like, granted, I sympathize with you for what happened, but if you are in this sword state, you should not be an instructor.
Right. That's the key.
And she believes that she's being undermined in authority just because she's being challenged in her own views.
Oh yeah, and sorry to interrupt you, but she also was quoted, "I imagine him sitting on the other side of his computer screen, laughing at my pain, joking about my distress. I imagine him being friends with my rapist."
It's not a crime for your imagination going off, so you have to punish this guy just because you're insane. I hate the concept of tenure. There are so many college professors that need to be thrown out. It is because I've experienced the sort of discrimination against for having dissenting opinions in college classrooms, and I've been punished with my grades, and this has happened with my mom as well when she was in college. It's she has no business grading the student because she doesn't even have the ability to look at what the student's saying with an open mind. That's what I have to say. That
She needs more therapy, man. She really
if you look at teaching, there's the standard of reliability. But how is there reliability to her grading if she can't be objective about it? And she takes it personally when she reads something that the student says about something that has nothing to do about her. I don't know. I have nothing else to say on that. I think we should maybe wrap it up on this college stuff, actually.
Yeah.
Let's get into some of the bottom of the stack stuff we have for national news. So, Aaron Hernandez, the former Patriots tight end, big-time star, hanged himself in jail this week.
Yeah, that was actually pretty surprising because, he was arrested back in, I think, 2014, and the trial went on in, 2015, and then he was convicted of murder. So he's been in jail for like 2 years.
He was convicted of 3 murders, wasn't he?
Well, he was convicted of the one for sure, and then there was another murder that he was found not guilty of.
Oh, okay.
But for sure, the one he was convicted of guilty of. And I think, Chris, you had an interesting perspective on that, right?
Well, interesting perspective, meaning I have a joke about this.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right.
Okay.
So this guy, Aaron Hernandez, hangs himself 3 years into a life sentence, proving that patriots will always be cheaters.
Oh, God. Oh, man.
Well, that also segues into another thing that we should talk about, which was the Patriots football team. They visited the White House earlier this week.
Oh, let me say a second thing
Okay.
on this Aaron Hernandez thing. So, with the big reason, I guess, why he did it was insurance money for his children,
That's believed to be one of the reasons.
because like they're getting millions of dollars now that he's dead.
He has
Right.
to keep his money, basically.
Oh yeah,
Right. And that's one of the things that we were talking about earlier. And that Massachusetts state law says that if a person who is in jail dies, what happens is if they have not yet
Completed
every single possible avenue they have to appeal a case, then the case reverts back to its original position, which is innocent before proven guilty, meaning he technically died an innocent man, even though he was convicted of murder.
that's really weird.
Yeah. Not every state has that. I personally think that's kind of a stupid rule. But
Yeah, go
That's-
back to the
that's the way
Patriots
it
thing
is.
you were saying.
I was saying, yeah. But the Patriots, they went and they visited the White House earlier this week, which every team that wins championships of all major sports does this. They've been doing that for decades. Every president, every sport, every championship. So that's nothing new. But the New York Times got in a lot of flack for a picture that they posted. They posted a picture back when the Patriots visited the White House in 2015 when President Obama was there. And there was like all the team members plus all the training staff and stuff were standing on the stairs. So it looked like there's about 50 or 60 people in the picture. And then they compared it to a picture of this year, which had only the team standing with Trump. So it made it look like a lot of people skipped Trump because they didn't want to go.
Yeah,
But in
which
reality,
some people did.
yeah,
but
I mean, a couple of people did skip. That is
it
the
wasn't
case.
that many.
It was only like 2 or 3. But the thing is, all the training staff were sitting on chairs in front watching the speech instead of standing behind him when he gave the speech. So they intentionally took a picture, making it look like people didn't show up because they didn't want to see Trump, and spread that information. The New England Patriots official Twitter account called them out on it, saying that the picture was misleading and they should apologize. Not only that, the Patriots then also issued some more clarification, talking about the number of team members and staff that have attended the White House over the 5 championships that the Patriots have had, and that I think it was back in 2004, or maybe it was 2005, when the Patriots won their second championship, only like 39 members went, and this year it was like 37, and so,
It's about what they've always been
The time
doing.
that they had the most was in 2015. They had like 70-something. So yeah, there was a drop-off of people that went this year, but it was not because of Trump. It went because a lot of the things is, what happens is most of the team members that were on the team this time were on the team back in 2015 when they won the championship. So this is their second championship in 2 years. Going to the White House after winning a championship is a very, like a high honor that people that win championships get to do. That's something that players look forward to. If you've already done it, it loses the novelty of it. And that's what happened back in 2004 or 2005 when the Patriots won multiple championships in a couple of years, is all the team members who had gone the first time didn't go the second time because they already did it. All the new players are what did. Same thing happened this year. A lot of the players that did skip were players that were on the 2015 team. There was like a 10-year gap between 2005 and 2015 when the Patriots didn't win. So in 2015 when they won, it was all new players. Hence the reason why everyone showed up.
Yeah.
Tom Brady also, their star quarterback, 2015, he didn't go. And he didn't go this year either because his mom has cancer. So, people like to make fun of Brady and Belichick, their coach, for being both pro-Trump as well as their owner, Robert Kraft. But Brady didn't even go. And he didn't go for President Obama either. So you can't say that he was skipping out because of Trump. His mom has cancer.
So just big fake news from the New York Times.
Yeah, and I'm glad they got called out on it by the official Twitter account of the Patriots, no less.
It kind of reminds me of that fake news with the inauguration photos that they're doing. Remember that?
Yeah.
This is not a new thing that they've been up to.
It's interesting. The media is always, they always seem to be concerned about crowd sizes. It's like a measuring contest, if you get what I'm saying.
Even though they didn't talk about crowd size during the election, when Trump would fill out, thousands of people, and Hillary could barely get 200.
Absolutely.
Let's get into this next thing I have. I have a report on the number of Americans with mental illness is rising nationally. This is from RT. I'll just read some of it. More Americans are suffering from serious psychological distress than in past decades, according to a new study. But as the demand for mental health care becomes greater, such services are actually deteriorating. Scientists from the New York University's Langone Medical Center analyzed adults aged 18 to 64 from 2006 to 2014 National Health Interview Survey. They examined on 11 indicators, including insufficient money for medical health care and having seen a mental health provider. The research was published in the journal Psychiatric Services on Monday. From the analysis, the researchers concluded that 3.4%, or more than 8.3 million of adult Americans suffer from serious psychological distress, SPD, which is defined as feelings of sadness, worthlessness, and restlessness, which are hazardous enough to impair a person's physical well-being. The number is significant as it represents a rise from previous survey estimates, which put the average American, or the number of Americans suffering from SPD at 3% or less. Despite the apparent rise in SPD sufferers, however, healthcare access to address the conditions was found to be decreased over the course of analyzed surveys. After comparing SPD symptoms from 2006 to 2014, the team estimated that nearly 1 in 10 distressed Americans did not have health insurance that could give the access to a psychiatric or counselor in 2014. This represented a rise from 2006, where 9% lacked any insurance. The rise also noted that it came to delays associated with professional help due to insufficient mental health coverage, with 10.5% expressing such delays in 2014. That was compared to 9.5% who said that they experienced delays in 2016. Yeah, there's nothing much more else to it. But so we are seeing that mental health issues are growing across the country, and we are struggling to address that issue. Which is definitely not a good thing. As far as mental health issues in general, isn't it something like 1 in 5 or 1 in 4 Americans have issues with mental health? I believe it's something like that.
Yeah, and the problem is a lot of them are professors not being able to grade a paper properly.
Yeah, I get that. That is one thing as we talk about gaslighting. Like, it's not good that we're gaslighting the mentally ill. I think politics is definitely bringing out a lot of mental illness in people, which is not good. And I guess this ties into my frustration with this healthcare situation with Donald Trump. Criticism when criticism's due. If mental illness is rising in the country, we do need to fix this problem quicker than we are. Do y'all have any thoughts on the issues of mental health in this country?
There was a little tidbit I wanted to touch on. That while I'm a bit skeptical of mental illnesses, genuine mental illnesses being on the rise of the country, because I remember PBS actually made this article back in February. It's corroborated with a lot of other traditionally liberal and even centrist news stations that said there was a wave of PESD, post-election stress disorder. People who would cry for days, like the supposed artist in Alaska.
Yeah, that's one of the jokes that Rush Limbaugh has had for several years. People suffering from post-election selection trauma, or PEST. Get it? Pest.
And not to mention that because we have greater access to mental health, the more that is reported, this is seen as, oh no, there's more mental health on the rise. This is No, this is similar to what was going on in by the time of the Marines, to when there was this huge, so in the media, there was this huge supposed epidemic of military rapes. It's just that in the military, it's a smaller segment, so it can be more easily monitored, more easily reported. So now that, and compared to the general population, we actually have on average, the same amount of rapes, but there's greater unreporting in the general population.
Yeah. So you think this is kind of false then?
For
That we're
me,
seeing a rise?
For me, I believe these numbers deserve more scrutiny. I'm not outwardly saying this is false. Let's say that I want to see the internals for this data.
Yeah.
Much like polls. If you don't have an internal for a poll, you can't trust the outcome.
So I want to kind of quickly get through the rest of this because we're getting up there in time.
Yeah, so we'll go on to the next thing really, really quickly. So everyone kind of knows that Bill O'Reilly, after being like the #1 watch show on Fox News, he's out because of sexual harassment claims. But his show is being replaced by Tucker Carlson, who is quickly becoming one of the most popular right-wing people. Who I like Tucker
Commentators.
Carlson. He's probably the best person Fox News has ever had, in my opinion. So his show will get even more popular because it's moving into the more primetime slot. And the only thing is that now shows like Rachel Maddow, they're trying to capitalize on this using left-wing outlets saying, hey, if the right-wing, if they can be taken down this easily, so I wouldn't be surprised if they try to make up some more BS about other people.
They've already come out, Slate did, against Tucker because they leaked some emails from him.
They got nothing on Tucker. Tucker's our guy.
You didn't hear about that?
I did hear about it.
Brittany Pettibone's Twitter.
Yeah, I follow her.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I kind of don't care about O'Reilly going away because I don't really side with him 100%.
he was against Trump a lot during the election. He
Yeah.
always tried to get Trump to change his mind on things.
He
Whereas
was a big...
Tucker Carlson's very objective the way he views things.
Say O'Reilly was a never Trumper.
He wasn't a
per se,
never
though.
Trumper, but he was very, very critical.
Yeah.
Whereas Tucker Carlson, especially if you ever watch him interviewing people, he doesn't let up. If someone isn't answering a question, he'll say, "Hey, you're not answering my question. Answer the question." And he's much better. Whereas other people like O'Reilly, even he would let people get away. He would ask them a question, they'd sputter off some nonsense that had nothing to do with it, and then they'd move on. Tucker's not like that. He's like, "Hey, you just spoke for 2 minutes and said nothing."
Yeah. O'Reilly was a big factor in us. He was a big promoter of us going to war in Iraq as well. So I'm pretty against O'Reilly in that sense. The incident that actually caused this, though, was he was accused of sexual harassment of an intern that was next to his office. Apparently, she claimed that he was leering at her and that he had called her hot chocolate. And she was a black woman, so.
It's funny, Fox News gets kind of a lot of rap for like only hiring like beautiful blonde women. But think about it. If you have like beautiful blonde women walking around, why would you go after like an intern? If you're going to sexually harass people, why go after like some intern that might not be there very long?
I think my thing is like, I don't necessarily care what happens to O'Reilly, but he shouldn't have to lose his job based on accusations. She should actually have to convict him of something. I absolutely detest the culture of accusations are what has to bring you down. That's not good at all.
Yeah. But like I said, O'Reilly still has his podcast that apparently he's going to be
Yeah,
doing.
he's starting a new podcast. I think it's like the No Spin podcast or something.
Yeah, so he's not going to lose all of his supporters.
I'm going to tune in and see if it's any good. But
Tucker Carlson, like I said, he's very popular now. He's moving into a much better slot time period. So this might end up actually working out for us.
Bill O'Reilly is the executive producer of Legends and Lies series too. Have you heard of that?
That's the one that's about. Is that the Killing series?
No, it's not the Killing
it's
series.
like a history thing.
It's a history thing. It's basically it gets like prominent historical figures. I think season 3 is gonna be, or was supposed to be, about the Civil War.
Okay.
But like season 2 was about the American Revolution, and season 1 was sort of about that as well. And it just will take like different people, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin, do little sort of documentary with reenactments, with also commentary by historians, including Bill O'Reilly. I'm curious about that, though, if it's going to continue, because that series was spot on.
He hasn't been fired from Fox News. All they said is his show is gone, right?
Wow. I didn't
right?
know that.
Didn't they? Or was he actually fired?
I
from
believe
Fox
he's
News?
fired.
Was he
let
fired?
go. Yeah.
I believe he's fired.
But yeah, I mean, that's a good question because I'm not sure. You know, he might have been fired, but I don't
Yeah.
know. They might keep his show. They might keep him on as an executive producer. He still has a lot of friends at Fox News. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
You know? So it's
It
not
was
like
weird.
it's not like everyone there hates him.
It was weird watching the show.
It kind of came out of nowhere. I
about
mean,
him.
he's been on the station for like 20
Yeah, he's
years.
been one of their highest rated people for over 20 years now.
He is one of the biggest like voices in right-wing politics in a sense, as far as like commentator reporting journalism goes.
The other commentators looked pretty dejected as they sort of delivered their monologues and how they respected him or whatever. But I mean, I don't blame them. I mean, you know, they were. I mean, again, these are accusations, so we'll see where it ends up.
I would be interested if they actually go through with an investigation. If they find out that these accusations are false, oh, buddy.
Wow.
Now, I mean, they might be true. I mean,
O'Reilly
For
could
sure.
countersue if they were,
For sure.
but I don't know if he would do that. But yeah, his new podcast will come out on Monday, so if that sounds interesting to you, I guess go download that. Do you want to get into this last NSA thing, Bobby?
I'm okay with skipping it, but if you want to talk about it, go ahead.
I don't really know anything about it, so.
So we're gonna move on to
Yeah.
international news then.
Or let's take that break that we're gonna take, and we'll go to Sam's new song. Sam, what's the song called?
Right now, it's called Cold News.
Cold News?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll be back in a sec. We're going to play Sam's new song, Cold News.
I never before.
Hey, welcome back from the break. We hope you enjoyed that song by Sam. We definitely appreciate having original music on the show. We're going to look to have more on the show. Hopefully, I'll come around to actually writing a rap song and performing it on the show. That'd be definitely fun. But let's get into international news now. The big thing that we definitely want to get in today is about the French election. We have the results in. Bobby, do you want to go over?
So earlier when I told you the results, right now almost all of the votes have been counted. 99 of the 107 departments have been counted. Macron is in first with 23.5% of the vote, and Le Pen is in second with 22.1% of the vote.
How did the others fare today? Just for curiosity.
Fillon is actually right now in third with 19.6, and Mélenchon is fourth with 19.3.
But they'll be gone after today.
Yeah, so both of them are gone, and Macron and Le Pen are currently the two that will. It's pretty much confirmed now. They will be moving on to the
second round.
To the second round vote,
which goes on in May.
May 7th.
May 7th.
2 weeks from now.
So definitely a good victory for people on the the anti-globalist nationalist perspective, individuals that we. Viewpoints that we all have in this room. But I think maybe we should go over for a second why we want Marine Le Pen to win, just in case any viewers don't understand French politics at all, which, I mean, I don't blame you. But, so, one of the biggest reasons why Le Pen's gaining traction is because she's coming out against mass migration into France, and she's the only candidate that's even willing to do that. So, in a lot of senses, she's the Donald Trump of France. I guess that would say. Chris, do you have any other reasons why people might want to support Marine Le Pen?
Oh yeah, outside of immigration, she also is adamant against the EU, much like in line with Nigel Farage's Brexit. Marine Le Pen hopes she can foster a Frexit for France. But the thing that's different from the French threat of leaving versus Britain's leaving is that France leaves the EU, it will definitely be the end of the European Union experiments.
Yeah, it'll definitely fall apart at that point. If France was to leave the European Union would no longer have nuclear weapons.
Yes.
So.
And not to mention that the entire idea behind the European Union is to prevent an outbreak of another European war, which is traditionally between France and Germany ever since the Franco-Prussian Wars, if I remember correctly, and the reason why that the UN is a complete not just the UN but the EU is it's a terrible idea is that Brussels is an unelected body of legislators who is
they dictate with like massive authority, which they're not held to any accountability, and they set massive regulations all across Europe which suppress economic growth and just too much big government to where it doesn't need to be. I guess that could sum up the European Union.
Yeah, and not to mention Marine Le Pen, she's also for bringing back the French franc to as a safeguard against the absolute lunacy of the Eurozone, the Euro currency. They're trying to tie dozens of nations together with vastly different economies into a single currency to where they cannot even have autonomy over their own financial markets.
Yeah. So I think you brought up the purpose of the European Union was to prevent wars, and I think maybe I'll delve into more about this migration stuff, since it's not enough just to say like, oh, she's against migration. So what we're seeing with the refugee crisis is unsustainable influxes of people from the third world, which have divergent cultures that have been clashing a lot with France. We've been seeing all across France the growth of no-go zones. We've been seeing constant rioting. We should go into the police officer shot a couple days ago. But you say it's to prevent war, but at this point the European Union's requiring these countries to take in these migrants in the millions. They're going to cause a civil war in these countries if they're pretty much causing it already. You look at France, Paris. They have riots every single day now.
They're rioting right now because of the election
Yes,
result.
with Islamists, Antifa, anarchists, and then socialists. Every single day, the entire city is in violence, and the media doesn't report about this at all. I've tried to talk to people about the violence that goes on in Germany and France and the likes, and people just have no idea. So I think it needs to be stated that France is definitely being negatively harmed by this immigration. She's the only person that wants to come out and really put a halt to it. I think Falan did to an extent as well, but he's going to be gone now. So
Yeah, there was a live stream on YouTube. He was conceding just now.
okay.
Well, what's interesting is Macron, who was he's a communist, who's currently in fourth with 19.3%. He is still refusing to concede until every vote is cast.
He's got the John Kasich mindset.
He somehow thinks that with like less than 10% of the votes still left to be counted, he's going to make up over a 3% difference.
Yeah.
Not going to happen.
So I think we should go into this terrorist attack that happened in Paris a couple of days before the election, kind of give it preface what's happening at the moment.
Yeah, so one of the saddest things about this, before we actually talk about what happened, is the police officer that was killed was one of the same people who responded back during the
2015 Paris attack.
Paris attack.
At the Bataclan.
Yeah, at the Bataclan.
Same guy.
Yeah,
That was the
that was the big terrorist.
Eagles of
Death. Yeah, that was the big attack when like 100 and something people died.
So before heading into the election today, I believe it was Friday when this incident happened. There was a Muslim terrorist attack. I know ISIS has always claimed responsibility for it, but
Like they always do.
multiple police officers were killed, wasn't it?
Yeah, but there was one for sure. I want to see if it says. I know for a fact there's at least one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think right now is actually just one, but multiple were shot.
Yeah.
Only one actually died.
Which you don't want happening in your freaking capital city of all places where there
the
should
guy
be
who was
authority.
arrested, his name was Chifuri or something like that. And yeah, anyways, it said that the guy had a long criminal record of including trying to attack police previously. This was a guy they knew about. He was on their equivalent of their like FBI watch lists that they have.
But they didn't deal with him.
Yeah, he was arrested back in February and then released due to lack of evidence. And he had been convicted of attempted murder after firing on 2 plainclothes police back in 2001. And also when he was in jail, he shot and wounded a prison police officer by grabbing the dude's gun. So, it's like, why is this guy out in the streets?
No. And, I was listening to Michael Savage earlier in the week, I think, to kind of tie it back to a point I made earlier. As far as, like, Bill O'Reilly not being... he's not actually convicted of anything. The accusations is what is the deciding factor. But, we can't go out of our way of having surveillance on these Islamists because, we might harm and we might do something to an innocent one. And, better that an innocent person avoids going to jail than we have to... Better than an innocent person doesn't go to jail than one does, but 100 criminals... I'm sorry, I'm fumbling over my words.
I think it's better that one guilty man walk free than an innocent man be arrested.
Yeah.
Proven guilty.
Bill O'Reilly's proven guilty just by the accusation, but we're not preventing these Islamists that we have suspicion to believe will carry out terrorist attacks. We're not doing anything about this. We're not doing anything about what happens in Fresno, and they're not doing anything that's happening in Paris. And, that's the big reason why people are pushing for Le Pen. She's taking a hardline stance against terrorism. You had Francois Fillon said that the chief interest of the president, if they're elected at the moment, would be dealing with terrorism. It's such a huge problem. We recently, I believe it was 2 weeks ago, we talked about a poll that they did in the United Kingdom that said 80% of Muslim respondents had a favorable view of ISIS. We look at the attacks in Paris in 2015. Those are comparable ISIS members that were doing it. There are a lot of ISIS infiltration cells in France. This is not something that needs to be played around. But we look at Macron, the centrist who will be facing Le Pen in the second round. He says that terrorism is something that we just need to learn to live with. That's not acceptable. That's not what a leader says. A leader doesn't say, "Oh, we have to put up with my citizens being killed because we don't want to offend the Muslim community."
We don't want to be called racist.
We don't want to be called racist. No, I don't care. These are lives. This is not a game.
Actually, that kind of is what a leader says in liberal leaders these days. Trudeau's sort of saying that kind of stuff. Other European leaders are saying that kind of stuff. It's not right. I don't agree with it.
They're leaders, but not serious leaders.
Right.
But
they're acting more like bosses rather than leaders.
Yeah.
If you know the difference between the two.
But I mean, if you think about it, why these leftist leaders in Europe are importing these migrants by the millions, they're going to have party loyalty to the party that brought them in. They're importing voters in the same way the Democrats do it in the United States with mass immigration. Despite all of the cultural the sporadic cultural enrichments that seem to be popping up all the time, killing people. We already have so many terrorist attacks that have happened this year, and it seems like they're only going to continue. We have 2 weeks till the second round, and who's to say that another terrorist attack will not take place in France at this point? It's insane. But do we have any other things on this France situation? Obviously, we're delighted that Le Pen has moved on to the second round.
Should we talk about the second round?
I think, yeah, we should talk about...
So, even though we're all ecstatic about the fact that Le Pen is moving on to the second round, every poll is indicating that she is going to lose in the second round by a very large margin.
Yeah.
And she might not even get more than 40% of the vote.
So, to explain French politics for a second, France is traditionally more conservative than the United States, but the Front National, which Le Pen is the candidate from, her father, Jean-Marie Le Pen, was the originator of the party back in the 70s, and he has a very controversial past, especially of anti-Semitism. So the party has always been considered, a fringe party that's not acceptable in the public. There was polling I remember seeing that something like 70% of French people consider the National Front a threat to democracy in France, which we see with Macron. We have a lot of people endorsing him at the moment purely because he's not Front National. As far as these polling numbers go, I mean, they're probably a bit closer than what they're saying. I remember before the show you're saying it's like a 20-point difference, maybe.
Yeah, that's what the polls are currently showing.
That'll tighten up in a sense. I think there's a lot of carryover vote from Fillon over to Le Pen because Fillon was the center-right candidate to where Macron was the center-left.
Yeah, well, I'm looking at, this is from The Guardian, and they have a good second-round projection thing of who's going to get what percentage share of the vote from different candidates.
Yeah.
And right now they have Le Pen inheriting 31% of Fillon's voters, 3% of Hammond's voters, and 12% of Mélenchon's voters. Whereas Macron is expected to get 43% of Fillon's voters, 70% of Hammond's voters, and 50% of Mélenchon's voters. Because Hammond, who's a socialist, he came out and he said, I'm voting for Macron not because I agree with him, but because I don't want to vote for an enemy of the state like Le Pen. That's not a paraphrase. That's almost exactly what he said.
And, they on the TV, they always, immediately before talking about Le Pen, they always say far-right candidate Marine Le Pen. But really, economically, she's more of a socialist than what we would consider traditional right of limited government in the United States. If you look at French politics in general, like the left-right paradigm is very different. But Le Pen, she runs her campaign based on a promotion of secularism as the value of the republic. and she views Islam as Islamism, the political affiliation of Islam, which is, tenet in the Quran. She believes that Islamism has declared war on the nation, reason, and civilization. And to secure the future of the French Republic, there needs to be a reassistance on secularism. In 2015, she had a comment which was hugely controversial, but was so kind of bold it gained her a lot of support. She believed that Muslims praying in the streets is like just as bad as the Nazis ruling the streets, because that is not what France is supposed to be. She doesn't necessarily she doesn't believe that Islam shouldn't be banned as far as a religion goes, but there definitely needs to be pushbacks against radicalization of Islam in the country. She doesn't believe that mosques should be built on the public dollar. To where, you look at Macron in the center, he doesn't view Islam in this sense at all. They kind of do it seems similar in a sense to the Hillary-Trump dynamic, if you ask me. Because when I watch Macron, he just seems very hollow. He's so centrist, it seems that he doesn't really stand for anything. And to where, Marine Le Pen, she's offering an actual alternative to politics as usual in France. If you look at the current president of France, Hollande, the socialist, who has the worst approval rating in French presidential history, he's actually come out and endorsed Macron to be the next president. So really, a vote for Macron is a vote for the status quo. And I think in the next 2 weeks, I think there'll be more people than polled will be contemplating the alternative that Le Pen has. But I still think it is a long shot that she can win.
I honestly, I hate to say it, but I do think she is going to lose in the second round. Polls now, like you said, they're showing that she's going to lose by about 20 points. I can see that tightening to maybe 15 to 13, but I still think it's going to be a pretty big defeat, unfortunately.
Yeah, the winds of right-wing populism, because we've done well with Brexit, with Trump. We didn't do the best with Geert Wilders in the Netherlands. Norbert Hofer lost in Austria. Those are the results that I wished would have gone for us. If those things had happened, the European Union would be pretty much destroyed at this point. Our best chance of getting rid of the European Union is Marine Le Pen winning. So
I think she's going to win. I think that between now and then, she's definitely going to refocus her campaign to, like she even said, she's going to be globalism versus nationalism, right? Right now, people are just faced with a little bit of a shock that she even got in, and I'm talking about those that vehemently opposed her. They're just kind of having a little bit of shock, but they're kind of easing it with the salve that says, "Oh, don't worry, she's going to lose the second round." And I get it. France doesn't really choose a president on accident, right? Because that's what the second round is there for. They really want that president or that person to be president. I'm just saying, between now and then, as long as Marine Le Pen continues to just go at it the way Trump did, I think she can combat the fake news that's out there against her, because it really is a battle against fake news. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it definitely, for me, it's proof that fake news is definitely highly involved in this situation by always prefacing far right candidate Marine Le Pen. They never say presidential nominee Marine Le Pen, National Front nominee Marine Le Pen. No, it's always the denigration of far right, far right, far right. What's actually far right about her other than like this is my big thing with Donald Trump, like he's not a far right candidate either. Just because he wanted to crack down on a huge problem that is immigration doesn't make you far right. It makes you someone that wants to enforce the laws that you already have. Like France has a huge problem with illegal immigration. That in the same sense that we do in this country, but way worse in France, of the threat of Islamism. So I don't know. Chris, do you have any thoughts on the situation with the election?
Le Pen's poll numbers, as y'all indicated earlier, goes up after a terrorist attack because Macron has lackluster delivery when it comes to addressing people who are a nation that's grieving after any given terrorist attack. I was following these live blogs in the New York Times who even noted that Macron isn't strong when it comes to consoling people who agree. He doesn't look presidential.
So if there's another terrorist attack in France in the next 2 weeks, that could actually help Le Pen. And that's a terrible thing to say.
Yeah.
But
It's like
it's the truth.
if Le Pen in the next 2 weeks can get her Orlando shooting.
Ooh, you bring up the Orlando shooting. That story got buried hard. But it did help Trump a little bit.
A lot of gay rights groups did come out in support of Trump after that.
I mean, if somebody has a tumor, I'm not saying I wish that it gets worse or gets bigger, but if something starts to happen to it that gets them to the doctor, I mean, that's better. You know what I'm saying? If you know what I mean, they need to get the help they need. I think Le Pen has the help they need, especially because I think that she and Trump are going to get along, and that's going to be good for everybody. And I think he thinks that as well. I mean, he tweeted about it, and not even to look down on or to magnify the terrorist act, but he obviously made a point that that terrorist attack made a difference. Mm-hmm. She's the one who's strong on it. Macron sucks when it comes to that. He's feckless. He's talking about this is a daily part of normal daily life. It's retarded.
Yeah, so I wanted to get into a point that just came to my head, but it just to go further in the social unacceptability of National Front to most of France, as far as gaining capital just to fund the campaign, every single bank in France denied Le Pen the ability to take any sort of loan to pay for the campaign. She actually had to go to Russian banks to get the money. So she's been accused of a Putin connection for a while now, in the same way they did with Donald Trump. So, more fake news really trying to combat Le Pen. I've been seeing nonstop articles of just like horror stories of what if Le Pen won, in the same sense that we saw with Trump. If Le Pen was to win, I don't really know what you could expect from a presidency of her, because there's going to be as much pushback as we see with Donald Trump. I don't know how well she could go about getting a referendum on a Frexit. That would be amazing. But I do want to believe at this point, but I don't believe that she'll win. It's just being realistic, I guess. There's just too much anti-National Front sentiment.
Based on what's happening right now, I can see your perspective. I just think that between now and then, things are just seeming to happen for populism that are unexpected. So.
Yeah. We always have the wild card of right-wing populism at the moment. I mean, as far as people showing up the polls to vote for her, it seemed like people were definitely... She has a very hardcore base that she's been able to nurture, which should definitely, push on election day. But it just depends, really, how powerful the anti-Le Pen vote is going to be. I remember, with our election, people thought Hillary was just going to win because there was going to be enough people that didn't want to see Donald Trump as president. But that wasn't the case in the end. I think you actually do have to stand for something to win an election, as opposed to being the anti-X candidate. But, I mean, we'll have to wait and see. Any more comments on this French situation before we move on? I think we're good. So, what was the next thing we're going to get into?
North Korea.
What kind of developments have we seen in North Korea in the past week,
Well,
Bobby?
earlier this week, Mike Pence visited South Korea.
He did. What day of the week was that?
That was Tuesday?
I want to believe it was Tuesday.
This was on the 17th, which was what?
Monday.
Monday. Yeah, so Monday, Vice President Mike Pence went to South Korea for some of his stuff. And he actually broke protocol by going to the DMZ and staring down North Korean troops on the border himself.
Yeah, that was kind of an interesting thing he did there. That was just kind of on the spot. He felt like doing that.
Yeah, because
which
that wasn't originally part of his schedule to do that.
No, but we've been seeing a lot of weapons heading towards the Korean Peninsula as far as the United States sending stuff over. We've been seeing more aircraft carriers heading over towards the Korean Peninsula. We have reports that a nuke-sniffing plane flew over Korea. So we're actively on surveillance for any sort of nuclear weapons.
Because I know that they tried to test their last missile, but it blew up, and we talked about that last week. So, I mean, they're threatening to test missiles weekly, and Kim Jong-un has even threatened to blow up a U.S. aircraft carrier. So, good luck with that.
He's threatened to, if there's any sort of actions taken against the regime, to nuke both the United States, and now he's also saying he's threatened to have a nuclear strike against Australia. I don't think he could reach the United States, but I don't know about the potential of Australia. That's a bit closer.
The only way that they're actually going to be able to get missiles across the ocean, because when I mean nukes, their missiles have always failed, and I don't know the capabilities of their long-range missiles or if any ICBMs that they might have. But whenever it seems they test missiles, they always fail. You rarely ever, if never, hear, a headline that says something along the lines of North Korean missile test, huge success.
No.
So they would have to smuggle those things in, which means they'd have to smuggle those things out.
Those bombs that they had in the parade for Kim Il-sung's birthday or whatever,
A lot of people thought that they were fake.
they looked fake. They really did.
Because I remember I was watching that live. And I mean, the live stream I was watching, it wasn't the highest quality, so I couldn't tell personally.
I mean, Russia used to do it, and they admitted it. Well, what is it so hard to believe North Korea?
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. But, I mean, imagine if North Korea did try to actually attack us, how quickly they would just be utterly destroyed.
Oh, yeah.
One thing that I saw an article recently, it came out on Sunday while we were recording. It's from The Independent, but it says that defectors from North Korea are warning, though, if there is any sort of U.S. attacks in North Korea, the North Koreans are going to be looking to kidnap American tourists or anyone that they've allowed to be in the country. So if there is any sort of conflict, we can expect to see civilian American nationals being held captive by the North Korean government, if not killed. Which is not good. I feel like the North Korean situation in general we've been seeing escalations as far as troop presence and weapon presence, but I don't think there's anything to really suggest any sort of action taken, the next week or month or anything. I don't see that happening. Do y'all?
It's more like a stable Cold War. It seemed like everything kind of escalated to a bit, and now it's just kind of like nothing's really happening. It'll be interesting if they actually do test their next nuke, because they said they wanted to test it, but they didn't actually do it.
Yeah.
And they've tested a few in the recent years, so it'll be interesting to see what actually happens there. And I want to I just saw something on the internet here. I don't want to go back to France too much, but there was a map of the different districts and stuff where Le Pen won, and obviously she won every single rural area in the map, but. There was a mayor of one of the smaller towns in France. Le Pen got the vote in his town by an overwhelming margin. He says, "It's possible that I will resign because I don't want him to devote my life to a-holes."
Jesus.
And that's coming from the mayor of a town realizing that his town voted for Le Pen.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm talking about. The social stigma about Front National is just so intense. Even though Le Pen coming in has really changed it, there's just been a thing that's been that way for a long time. What we do know, looking at French political history, though, is oftentimes because it's traditionally conservative, after times of leftist regimes, we see a hard right push, which, we are exiting the President Hollande, who's a socialist presidency, and a complete failure. I do think that there's just a stronger push for right-wing politics in the world, but also in France, and maybe that might play a potential in it. But not to sidetrack so much back into French stuff.
My two bits in North Korea is that I do not see anything from a little fat boy, because the thing is, the military is the one who has the real power in North Korea. The military council has interest in self-preservation. They are not brainwashed like the average citizen. They're not going to say, oh, hey, let's see if we can send a missile all the way over to Australia, assuming that it doesn't get shut down by either American expeditionary forces, MEWS, Japan, Philippines, Indonesia, and Australian air defenses. Assuming that nowhere along the way that happens. That, hey, let's give them a casus belli to invade us, and for our so-called ally in China, they're not even ally. They don't even like North Korea. The young guard of the Chinese Communist Party doesn't like North Korea, but that's besides the point. So the generals have interest in self-preservation. I do not see this escalating from the Korean side. I don't even see this escalating from the American side. Having aircrackers go over to Korean Peninsula, it's been a pretty routine. They get missiles, they get uppity, and we secretly send them aid to get them hushed down. But Trump isn't playing that card anymore. He doesn't want this. He wants to go for pest control in North Korea. This could be one of the things that will get him in for 2020. And China and Russia are getting this note as well. While they are still adamant against Trump in Syria, they are less so. There's less political capital in the Korean peninsula. But that's my opinion.
Yeah, and like we mentioned earlier, China's already said that they're going to stop buying North Korean coal. They're going to buy our coal.
Yeah, that was the one thing that came out of President Xi's discussion with President Trump is really in the past, China's viewed North Korea as this buffer state between, the West and them, but they're beginning to realize more and more that they are a liability. They recently moved the 150,000 Chinese troops to the North Korean border, and if you look at North Korea in general, it is messy because this regime will eventually collapse. I don't think this is indefinitely sustainable, having this sort of insane hermit socialist kingdom. There's been further looks for actions as far as economic sanctions against North Korea, and also just talking about the Chinese have committed to taking American coal over North Korean coal. That will greatly hurt the North Korean economy. But I don't know. I don't think there's going to be any movement anytime soon. I mean, we've been reporting about North Korea since we started this show, something like 2 months ago now. But you think about, say, a fall of the North Korean government. The Chinese moved their troops to the North Korean border because they fear North Korean refugees going to China. China, they don't play this sort of European Union, we love everyone. No, they take hardline stances to protect their own people, which is admirable. But, you look at the realm of the unified Korea, if North Korea is to fall, these people have become so different from one another, even though they're technically the same people. I don't know how well it could work if the North Korean government was to fall, because there will still be loyalists to the very bitter end. There's so many weapons in North Korea, you're going to have holdouts like it's, Japanese again. I mean, as long as the United States doesn't have to get involved, that's all I care about. But North Korea, end of North Korean regime leadership under Kim Il-sung would be good as well, just for the sake of humanity, I'd like to say. Any other thoughts on North Korea? I don't think there's too much.
Well, we've been talking about North Korea so much over the last few weeks, and I feel like everything that I'd say, I've already said it.
Yeah. Let's get into Syria and the Middle East. So, recently there's been reports that a Syrian bus convoy leaving Aleppo was car bombed. the Syrian news reported on this. It's believed that rebel forces did this. 60 children were killed in these convoys. You know, you put this in perspective of these sarin gas attacks in Syria, which is supposed to be convincing us that we want regime change in Syria. The rebels that were supposed to be back just killed nearly the same amount of children. They just didn't use chemical weapons. They just car bombed them. How is it supposed to be any different? Syria is frustrating. Yeah, just talking quickly on that situation there. We also have massive protests in the street again in Turkey against the referendum against Erdogan. It was last week that Erdogan's referendum passed, wasn't it?
Yeah. It passed by a very slim margin. It was like 51-49.
Yeah, I believe
and that essentially gave him utter, absolute control over the country. So you still have roughly half the country that disagrees with the fact that he just stole complete control. So, there's no surprise that there was lots of protests because of the results of that election.
So, to kind of better further show people the situation that's going on in Turkey, if you look at statistically, for the 49% of people that voted no against the Turkish referendum, 72% of the Turkish economy is focused in these cities that voted no. And 85% of the books sold in Turkey were in cities that 85% of books sold in Turkey were by people that voted no against these referendums. You look on the other side, and these are the three biggest cities in Turkey voted no against Erdogan. You look on the other side, the 51% that voted for Erdogan to have these powers expanded under the referendum, they only contribute to 28% of the Turkish economy, and only 15% of the books in Turkey are sold to them. So it is a huge divide between the growingly radical Islamist ruralites against the secularist people in the cosmopolitan urban cities. Turkey has had a history of secularism up to this point, but it is definitely under threat by Erdogan. With this referendum recently passed, it pretty much dissolves the parliamentary system completely in Turkey and just grants that executive power to Erdogan. And as we've said before, this referendum allows him to stay in power till 2029. The powers of this referendum doesn't start till 2019, but Turkey is a lot of bad news. Do you all have any perspectives on Turkey you want to talk about?
Yeah, interesting thing you brought up, the slim margin, is that Erdogan, the reason for his big rift between Ankara and Brussels, is the fact that a multitude of European countries flat out said no to Erdogan, to allowing Erdogan's official government ministers to campaign for him in these cities abroad. And he went off, with his tangent saying like, oh no, EU's all racist and whatever, so on and so forth. But it's interesting that he prioritizes getting votes from people who do not live under his governments.
Yeah, and they don't see themselves as, Germans or French. They still see themselves as Turks. Germany, I believe, has an immigrant population of Turks that's around 4 million people. So it's definitely sizable. And abroad, Erdogan has much massive support than he does have in Turkey. We have an article just talking about Turkey. There was an individual that exposed Turkish weapons deliveries to Syrian terrorists, and he's currently being detained in Istanbul by the Erdogan government. So, Turkey is involved in a lot of bad things in Syria, and it's being covered up, and they're trying to hide it in Turkey, but it's being exposed. The Turks, they actually have had military strikes into Syria on several occasions fighting the Kurdish forces. So that's not really good. And also, coming out of Turkey is where a lot of ISIS's oil that is smuggled out of the region is smuggled through. So, in actuality, the Turks don't. Well, at least the Erdogan regime doesn't have a huge problem with ISIS. But, as I say this all, Turkey is supposed to be our ally. It's a joke, but we have nuclear weapons and bases in Turkey. Erdogan keeps on rambling on with the EU needs to allow him to be a member state and give open, free visa travel to the Schengen zone to millions of Turkish citizens. Every single person would be allowed to leave immediately, which many would do. And they either have to do that or he's going to flood the continent with migrants. So the choice is let everyone flood in legally, or he's just going to let them do it illegally. He's threatening just in the same sense as a terrorist would. Constantly calling these French leaders who want to crack down on immigration issues, he's just calling them Nazis. He's even called Merkel a Nazi. So Turkey is one of the most garbage countries in the region as far as geopolitics goes. Do you want to talk about this deployment of troops to southern Afghanistan?
Yeah, pretty much the reason why they're doing that is because in recent months, ever since about February, the Taliban has regained some land that we took back from them. They've regained land that we took from them. So it's kind of because of that. A lot of people in the comment section are realizing that the people that we're sending over there is a brigadier general and 3 colonels. And what normally happens to brigadier generals and colonels when they get sent off to war?
What?
Promotions. So a lot of people are thinking it's because, a lot of the people they're going to want to get promoted. So they're like, hey, get sent over here. All of a sudden, you'll be 2 stars in 6 months. So, they said watch out for that.
Yeah.
So we're seeing a small amount of troops sent into Afghanistan.
And not to mention, this comes after the news of there was a recent attack on an Afghan base where over 100 Afghanis were killed. It was by the Taliban.
Yeah, it was a big one. We're seeing.
I think this decision was actually made before that happened, though. But it is interesting how that did happen right around the same time period.
Yeah, it's not the best that the Taliban are seeking a resurgence in Afghanistan. We've been fighting in this sand hellhole
I'd be happy
since
just
2001.
to, drop a few more Moabs and start getting our guys out of there. I'm not sure how many people we still have left over there. It can't be too many.
How many Moabs do you think they're gonna drop though?
Well, we've got like 18 of them.
I thought we had 15.
Okay, we've got 15 of them. Their shelf life ends next year.
You need to start using
Yeah,
them.
so we either use the rest of them in the next year, or they can't be used anymore.
ISIS can have a lot of them. It was nice when they dropped it on ISIS. What was it, last week?
About a week and a half ago now.
A week and a half ago.
No, like when they were interviewing all the farmers and stuff that lived in that region, they were happy because ISIS was stealing from them and ruining their towns. They said, "Good, they're gone now. Thank you, USA."
Well, it's good then that people are benefiting from our actions in the region. Do you have this stuff on troops being sent to Somalia up? My computer is being frozen.
Yeah. So this is an article that's in Newsweek, and it's talking about how the U.S. is deploying some troops to Somalia, and this article is really negatively biased because it's all talking about what happened in 1993, and we all remember what happened in 1993.
Black Hawk Down.
Yeah. So it's talking about why is the U.S. getting involved in something that it really shouldn't be getting involved in, and
I believe they're on a humanitarian aid.
yeah, that's
mission.
correct. This article doesn't really have very much information. It's pretty much talking about how there's Al-Shabaab has just been, which is the terrorist group that's in Somalia. They've kind of been seeing some increases in their numbers and what they've been doing recently. So they're worried that might cause more conflict in the region, and it's kind of like they're wanting to get that over with before it gets worse.
Somalia pretty much doesn't have a government. It's a failed state, so it is controlled by these different terrorist groups competing with one another. If you go down to Mogadishu or the big cities in Somalia, people just openly carry AK-47. So the entire The situation is pretty garbage. But I don't know. I mean, I don't like it when we're sending troops around the world in general. I don't think it's worth American lives to, do things like this. But if it stays limited to humanitarian aid missions, I guess that's all right.
What's interesting is it says that in 2016, 10 American citizens were caught trying to join Al-Shabaab, and they were all from that Somali immigrant community in Minneapolis.
See, I knew before you told me that they would have been from Minneapolis. Huge problem. Most people have no idea the problems with Somali immigrants in Minnesota, but there are plenty if you just look it up yourself. Let's get into the last couple of international news stories we have and then get out here. We're getting up there on time. So Theresa May has recently declared that she wants to have a snap election in June. She beforehand didn't say she said she didn't want to do this, but she changed her mind now apparently.
I think this is a great idea because right now after Brexit and that defeat, their Labour Party is in complete disarray.
The Labour Party is the primary leftist
it's
party.
their leftist party. They're in complete disarray, and they're struggling to find leadership because a lot of their people don't trust Jeremy Corbyn, who's like the head of their party.
Who's a communist.
Yeah, he is a communist. But by calling this election, she's pretty much saying forcing people to vote. And, of course, their third parties are bigger than our third parties here in the U.S., but that being said, they're still not enough to the point where they're going to make too much of a difference. And it's pretty much, ever since she said it, their conservative party, which is kind of their more right-wing party, is definitely going to see a lot of gains in government because of this.
Yeah.
And so it's to the point where Labor might not even see big power for a decade. That's how important the snap election is.
The benefit of doing the snap election is it allows Theresa May to get more support behind her heading into these Brexit negotiations, so she has more political capital to do so, which, I mean, the majority of people in the United Kingdom at this point support Brexit. Even many people that didn't initially vote for it, they do believe that Brexit should be fulfilled because it's what the people voted for. So it is good in that sense that Theresa May is doing this just so we can get Brexit passed quicker. We can have that one step closer to the European Union being destroyed, the evil thing that it is. I'm not particularly the biggest fan of Theresa May in the world. I feel like our relationships with the United Kingdom at the moment's okay. I've recently seen some things, though, that Trump might look to negotiate trade deals with the European Union before the United Kingdom, even though during the campaign he said that the United Kingdom would go to the front of the queue. So if Trump goes back on that, I won't be necessarily happy. I've been watching this trade stuff very closely, but
I would think as long as we get a trade deal done, it wouldn't really matter who we do it with first, because you're going to have to negotiate a trade deal with both the EU and Great Britain.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to think about it, the EU is still bigger. It does have a bigger economy than Britain does, so it would make sense to go after the EU first. But definitely, don't skip out and just completely ignore Britain during the process.
Yeah, I think we'll get a good deal out of the United Kingdom regardless. So I don't think that's too much to worry about. But
they're ready to deal with this. So
yeah.
I mean, that's their incentive to get it done quickly and get to the head of the line. I mean, they're gonna get it done. They're gonna negotiate quickly.
Yeah. So also this week there's been a lot of protests in Venezuela. A lot of anti-Maduro protests.
Did you all see what? Did you all see the thing that was passed around?
The
that
fake
was very
news?
famously the fake news from MSNBC and Rachel Maddow. So during one of the large anti-Maduro protests in Venezuela, I mean, they've been protesting for a very long time. They've got no food.
Months.
Their economy sucks. They've got no jobs. Everything's terrible. And MSNBC has the nerve to say that the reason they're protesting is because of Donald Trump. And how he made like some deal with like getting like a loan or something from someone.
No. Their entire thing was that there was a state-run company in Venezuela that donated to Donald Trump way back when.
Right. Yeah, so they're saying that because this one company donated to Trump a long time ago, that's the reason why all these protests are happening.
Huge fake
MSNBC
news.
has the nerve to run that as their leading story.
They won't come out and say, no, it's because people are dying from your failed socialist state that has breadlines and has authoritarian thugs that, put down protests violently.
And have to kill zoo animals just to get food.
Yeah, they're having to kill dogs, horses, anything to eat these people. It is terrible, the situation in Venezuela.
Imagine if you're an MSNBC viewer who's really low informed and you see that. You're going to believe it, and you're going to hate Trump even more. And hence, yet another instance of why fake news is destroying this country.
Yeah, you see that and you immediately blame Trump for it. Now you're blaming the suffering of millions of people in Venezuela on Donald Trump for something he has no connection to their suffering. He is not the reason they're in the streets at all for this happening. So we also have another story coming out of Venezuela. It looks like the Venezuelan government seized a General Motors plant in Venezuela. Do you have the stuff on that pulled up, Bobby? My computer's pretty frozen.
The Venezuelan government seized the plant from GM, General Motors. It was an automaking plant. And General Motors says that because of that, they're going to stop doing any business in Venezuela anymore. So I guess you can say that they have now seized the means of production. And what happened because of that? GM's like, okay, bye, Felicia.
So GM
I
is
bet
leaving
Bernie's
Venezuela
really happy
now.
about that.
Bernie Sanders defended Venezuela many times throughout his political career.
Yeah, it says that the plant had about 2,600 workers. Now none of them have jobs.
Jesus.
And these are people who are poor enough as it is. That now the little tiny income that they probably did have, as far as it would go in the Venezuelan economy, no more.
All because the government want to seize it for their socialistic aims. Socialism kills a lot of people in this world. Very bad idea. Chris, did you put up this last article that we have?
Yes, it was just the last tidbit of positive news. This is actually surprising coming from NBC that there was a charity worker who was detained in Egypt for 3 years who credits Trump for her release.
Yeah, I remember seeing that on Twitter. People were saying it was hashtag bring home Aya. That's her name,
Yeah.
Aya Hijazi.
Yeah, she was a charity worker. And she was brought on bogus charges, 3 years in Egypt, but she credits the Trump team for this.
Yeah, because didn't Trump personally negotiate her release? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
You know what upsets me the most about that event, though, is how the media responded, saying that Trump should have responded harder about to Egypt, and done more along the lines of the way Obama did with his
I
rhetoric.
mean, if he had done the way Obama would do it, she'd still be in jail.
That's what I. That's
She is
what I'm
home and
upset.
she is safe.
That's what I'm upset about, because it's like yes, you got to start somewhere type of situation. I'm not saying you need to negotiate with terrorists in terrorist situations or whatever. I mean, she was obviously brought up on bogus charges. But whatever Trump did when he dealt with President Assisi, right? That's his name. Whatever was said, whatever was done, whatever commitments or negotiating was done, he is making an actual relationship with this guy to where we're getting things done, good things done. I was an American citizen. Obama was a lot of talk. Trump is a lot of action. I just hate it when the media says that action was not good because it came from him. Even though the things that he did that's amazing, man. He brought somebody back.
What were they being held for? Do you know?
Oh yes, in the article, she's a charity worker, and the Egyptian government was charging her with human trafficking, exploitation of minors, things that are pretty much the antithesis of her mission.
Child abuse.
The Egyptian government is definitely not a good friend of the United States.
Yeah, and here's the thing. The article says that the Obama administration had already called for her release, but Obama had a very tough stance on President Sisi.
Yeah.
Whereas, including barring him from even coming to the White House. Sisi last month. Sorry. last month, met with Trump at the White House.
Yeah, exactly. That's
And
all.
Trump said, "You have a great friend and ally in the United States and in me." And apparently that meeting is what staged their relationship for him to personally negotiate her release.
Wow. I would have no idea that had happened this last week.
Oh yeah, you missed that one. That one was a pretty good one. That was very good news. Very good news.
Well, I'm glad that we can close out this episode on some good news. I don't really want to talk about depressing Venezuela stuff to close out the show.
Wait, we didn't mention one thing.
Wait, what?
The unicorn frappuccino.
What's the unicorn
Oh, you don't know
frappuccino?
about the unicorn frappuccino?
No.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it has as much calories and sugar in it as a Coca-Cola bottle, but there's this unwarranted, disproportionate of blame on social media. Like, oh, unicorn frappuccino, how can you do this stuff? It's so unhealthy.
Is that a Starbucks thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, we drink Coca-Cola bottles, and we don't have this unwarranted hysteria.
Yeah, if you look at pictures, the thing's like purple and it's got like sparkly glitter
Yeah.
that's like food, or it's like sparkly glitter type sprinklers on it.
Well, it went viral because this kid recorded himself, a barista, saying, "Don't order this if you care about me. Don't. I have shit in my hair, on my nose, sparkly stuff," and it went viral. You know what I'm saying? So it's just a funny story. Anyway.
The only thing I saw was a guy who dropped it off a 100-foot building.
Why do people hate this drink so much?
It ends selling today, so whatever.
They should have sold this in a red cup. I mean, let's be honest here.
Maybe it's like a gay pride drink. If it's got sparkles.
Have you not seen the picture of it?
No, I
It looks
haven't.
like a wild berry type deal.
Well, we can look at that picture after we're done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alright, I'm good.
Well,
Well, actually, I would just like to say the last thing of French election results. 104 of 100% departments have been counted. Macron is at 23.9. Le Pen is at 21.4.
okay, so second place, we're going to the second round. We'll have to see if Marine Le Pen can pull it out. But yeah, that's going to be our episode for this week. We're very glad that you listened. Kris, thank you for coming on the show once again. Sam, also thank you for coming on the show once again. We just want to remind you that we are on SoundCloud as Trump Republic Radio. We're also on YouTube, we're Trump Republic Radio. We have a Podbean, which is trumprepublicradio.podbean.com. If you would like to email into the show any sort of questions that we can answer for you, we are trumprepublicradio@gmail.com. With that said, we should be done. Thank you very much for listening.
All right, thank you for watching, everyone.
Большое спасибо, добрый день.
Later.
Bye.